Okay. All right, welcome everyone to the Lincoln City Council meeting on December 18th, 2023. In accordance with LB 898, please be advised that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chamber. Chamber. Let us all rise for the pledge of allegiance and a brief period of silent meditation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. The order of business of the Lincoln City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the... Thank you, Benny. I appreciate that very much. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda. Under public hearing, anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The council will require any member of the public desiring to address the council to identify themselves, the name of an organization or group, that you may be representing unless the address requirement is waived to protect the security of the individual. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating their name, address, and whether they are speaking in favor of or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last Mondays of the month immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that date nor planned for a future agenda. Madam Clerk, will you please call our first item of business?
Just first up, we have a couple of announcements. Due to Christmas and the New Year holidays, City Council will not meet on December 25th and January 1st. Also note about the timer that's displayed. It starts out green, then when you have 1 minute left, it will turn yellow, and then will turn red when your time is up. Up first, we have our consent agenda, which are items 1 and 2.
Is there anyone here to speak on anything on the consent agenda? Director, welcome.
Good evening, Maggie Stuckey-Ross, Director of Parks and Recreation, 3131 O Street. I am excited today to bring another nominee for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to you. Isabel Huertas is a student at Lincoln High School, and Parks and Rec is really lucky to have high school representatives serve on this advisory board. It's so important that we have a diverse group of voices and opinions and ideas coming to make us better. So Isabel is joining us, we hope, and she's here to answer any of your questions.
Isabel, welcome. Thank you so much for coming down.
Absolutely.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a junior at Lincoln High School. I am very committed to the community. I love volunteering. I am taking a lot of AP classes. My father is a pastor and my mother's a psychotherapist, and I have 2 brothers.
Very good. It sounds like you're very busy.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being willing to give your time to the City of Lincoln and for the Parks and Recreation Board specifically. We appreciate that. Yeah. Do we have questions?
I have.
Oh, yes.
Oh, God, please.
Councilman Duden, please.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Not quite sure yet. It's still on the rocks. I definitely know what I want to study. I want to study sociology and philosophy.
Oh, how interesting. Well, I'm just going to be consistent. At the last meeting when we had nominees ahead for Parks and Rec, I did ask, what's your favorite park or trail in Lincoln?
Irvingdale Park is probably my favorite.
All right. Thank you
We
very
love
much.
all our parks equally, but that's a great answer. So thank you for serving and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Isabel. We appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else? Yes. Director Elliott.
Yes, good evening. Elizabeth Elliott, Director, Lincoln Transportation and Utilities. We do have a reappointment that I'm excited. Ms. Drucke has agreed to serve again on the StarTran Advisory Board. She's been serving on the advisory board since 2021. Ms. Drucke has had dedicated her entire career to public service nonprofits, currently working at the Community Action Partnership, where she is a program coordinator there. So having her insights on the different communities they serve and their needs has been extremely valuable to the advisory board. So we just ask that you approve her reappointment.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for Director Elliott? Okay, seeing none.
Thank
You
you.
so much. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on any items under sections 1 or 2 of today's consent agenda? Anyone else for items 1 or 2 under today's consent agenda? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, Brandy, do you just want to go ahead and call us through those items?
Yeah, we can now vote on these items. Item 1A is appointing Isabel Hortez as a high school representative to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for a term to expire May 31st of 2024. That was introduced by Weber.
So moved?
Second?
Moved by Washington, seconded by Carlson. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1B is reappointing Sarah Drecky to the Star Train Advisory Board for a term to expire October 20th, 2026, introduced by Weber.
So moved?
Second?
Moved by Washington, seconded by Carlson. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1C is approving the professional services agreement supplemental number 2 for environmental services between the City of Lincoln and Kirkham Michael and Associates Incorporated for the South 56th Street Spruce to Van Dorn Street Rehabilitation Project, introduced by Weber.
So moved?
Second?
Moved by Washington, seconded by Carlson. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Item 1D is approving the contract between the City of Lincoln and Environmental Systems Research Institute Incorporated to provide geospatial information system enterprise software and services for mapping purposes for a 3-year term, introduced by Weber.
So moved?
Second?
Moved by Washington, seconded by Carlson. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Carlson,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Items 2A and 2G are all setting the hearing dates, introduced by Schob.
So moved. Second?
Second, Carlson. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Next up, we have our public hearing liquor resolutions. Just a reminder, I will have to administer an oath for these items for anybody that wants to come up and speak. I'll be calling item 4A and 4B together. It's the application of Fresh International Lincoln LLC, doing business as Fresh International Market for a Class D liquor license located at 5220 O Street, and the related manager application of Gary L. Cheng.
Is there anyone here to speak on items 4A and 4B? Anyone here to speak on items 4A and 4B? Gary Cheng, by chance? Okay. Seeing none, let's go ahead and move on.
Item 4C is application of Vincenzo's Incorporated, doing business as Vincenzo's Restaurant for a Class C liquor license located at 808 P Street, Suite 100. Excuse me, there is a related manager application of Sarah A. Rochford.
Correct. Thank you. Nicole Bogan.
Uh,
First.
Yes, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Nicole Bogan, here as
In favor of the Class C liquor license, my address is 121 South 13th, Suite 800, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68508. We submitted the application for Vincenzo's Inc., doing business as Vincenzo's Restaurant for the Class C liquor license. You should have the application of Sarah Rockford. I have her here with me if you have any questions for her. I do have with me her payment receipt for her training, the responsible hospitality training. She's scheduled to attend the class on January 11th, 2024. So I do have that recorded here for that. If you have any other questions, we're here and available to answer those for you.
Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any questions at all? I know that having the receipt for the upcoming training in January has probably covered at least one question. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Seeing none. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
down,
you.
Nicole. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on items 4C or 4D? All right. Seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to 4E.
Item 4E is the manager application of Brett P. Bussinger for Tailwind LNK LLC, doing business as Tailwind LNK, located at 2400 West Adams Street.
Hello, sir. Welcome.
Hello.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brett Businger. I'm the new general manager at Tailwind Concessions at 2400 West Adams at the Lincoln Airport.
Ah, very good.
Go ahead.
No, if you just wanted to tell us a little bit more about your application, could you tell us a little bit about what you serve there at the Lincoln Airport?
At the airport, we serve beer and liquor as well as food. It's basically a sports bar we have there. Yeah, it's about it right now. It's,
Okay.
as you know, it's pretty small out there.
Very good. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Let me see if any of our counselors have questions for you. Any questions for our applicant? Yes, sir. Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming forward. Tell me, have you done this before? Is this something you have experience doing?
I have not had a liquor license before. It's my first time. Probably will not be my last time, but you never know.
Restaurant experience or?
Yes, I have about 20 years of cooking and management altogether. So I've been in the business for a while. I've culinary arts management degree.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other questions? Okay. Okay, very good. That's all we have. Thank you so much for coming down. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on item 4E? Anyone else here for item 4E? All right, seeing none.
Mr. Chair, we have, I'd like to make a motion of denial for items 4A and 4B.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Washington, discussion?
It seems that someone from planning would like to help us, please. There seems to be an issue with planning and zoning.
Excuse me, Brian Will, Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street, Lincoln, 68508.
Thanks for coming forward.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is a building that's been in existence for a while, and I seem to remember that the previous occupant did sell alcohol. What about the planning, the zoning issues? Explain to me what happened. Help me understand.
I think they may have. So, if my viewer will come up, I'll try to try to explain here the circumstance of where we're at here today. Okay, so O Street, 52nd. This is the property here that we're talking about, 5220 O Street. And this outline here is of the existing building on the premises today. The prior liquor license holder, when they applied, that was at a time when actually there was a building located here. And as we talked about it internally, I think that license application was probably reviewed for this building located at the corner, which did meet all the requirements for a special permit. However, at the time of that license application, it was noted they did not have a special permit. So I think that license application was conditional. It was subject to them coming back around to the city and getting a special permit applying to city, going to planning commission, getting approval. That never happened. So while I think that license was conditionally approved, it was in fact not in compliance with local zoning for this new location. So what brings us here today, and the reason the recommendation for denial from staff is that a special permit for on or off sale alcohol requires a 100-foot separation from a residential zoning district boundary to the licensed premises. So that licensed premises is the footprint of this building. This yellow over here, which is the assisted living facility adjacent, is zoned R2, residential zoning. It's approximately, at best, maybe 40 feet away. So it does not meet that separation. So it cannot meet the criteria for special permit. If you can't meet all the criteria for a special permit for on or off sale alcohol, you can't even apply for it. And so that's the circumstance here. Had the prior licensee applied for it, it would have been noted at that time, it doesn't meet the requirements, can't grant a license here. So that's the recommendation for denial from staff on this application.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just one more question, Mr. Will. I note that a couple of buildings, businesses just east of it, sell alcohol, but they're a restaurant. Is there a difference there?
Yes, correct. So within the requirements for special permit for on sale, there is a distinct category with a reduced separation requirement for a restaurant. You meet all of the criteria for a sit-down restaurant, kitchen, sit-down, menu, etc. That separation is reduced to 25 feet. So Cheddar's, for example, they meet that separation, okay? By the way, so I also had a question about the gas station, the store. Yeah, Hy-Vee. Well, they're right next to it. Okay, well, there was a rezoning here. So when they came in for their special permit, property to the north was zoned H2 commercial. They met the requirements at the time. It was subsequent to that that the assisted living facility came back, rezoned some of this property to R2. So they're legally existing. That change of zone, making them non-conforming, came after the fact. So their special permit's valid. They're legally existing. Now, they may have trouble expanding, perhaps, but the way they are, where they are, they're fine.
Okay. Wow. So this applicant who did not come in this evening, and who you said could not apply, if they were to open up a cafe within their business, would that qualify as having a restaurant?
Yes, and so we had that discussion internally about the kind of license they're applying for. Now, what they've applied for is a license that allows both on and off sale. That won't work. It can only be on sale associated with a restaurant. Okay, and it would have to be limited to just that, a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
A menu, sit down. And I actually talked to this applicant about that, and he said that's not part of what we're doing.
Okay.
That won't work. So.
Thank you.
Other questions?
It just doesn't seem quite right. With having that grocery store there for so long, that sold wine and beer in there, and then similar business goes in and they can't have it.
Yeah, I guess all I would say is that prior occupant did not have a special permit. They were not in compliance with local zoning. So I mean, it's not atypical.
So what was the enforcement?
I'm not involved with the licensing. I can't speak to that. What I can tell you is that it's not unusual that these license applications will come down to the city, be reviewed internally by staff, and it will be noted that, okay, it looks like they meet the requirements, but they don't have a special permit. Okay, so I think those are conditional. That is, the recommendation is grant the license, but note that they need to come back and apply for a special permit, ensure compliance with local zoning. It's not guaranteed, but, okay, so there's still something on their part they need to do. And that was the case here. It was a conditional approval. Okay, it looks like, you know, it might work here, but you need to get in compliance with local zoning, apply for that special permit. I mean, it's more than just
And they didn't do that.
perfunctory, it's more than a perfunctory function. We do a review, we will measure, we ensure that it meets the requirements, but that did not happen. And so, yeah, unfortunately, somebody was there selling alcohol, but was not compliant with local zoning.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Councilman? Any other questions for Brian? Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Any other questions before we call the vote on this one? Okay, seeing none. Brandy, why don't you go ahead?
Washington,
Yes for denial.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the motion for approval of items 4C, 4D, and 4E.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Carlson, discussion? Yes, Councilman?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask Mr. Parker to come up and help me better understand something about 4E's application.
Scott Parker, Lincoln Police Department, 575 South 10th Street.
Mr. Parker, thanks for coming forward. I noticed on the application that you had a conditional approval for
Correct.
this application, and there was a mention of a show cause hearing.
Yes.
Could you help me better understand what that is and what happens in that
Yes.
situation?
So a show cause hearing is triggered, well, one of two ways, or this was triggered one of two ways. Strictly based off the points due to the convictions that were listed in the letter. I specifically requested that, and it would have been automatically triggered as well due to the point system that the state has in place. What that would force the applicant to do is go before the liquor commissioners. They discuss, you know, if there is any ongoing issue that is related to those convictions, and then they may place special, I guess, stipulations on the license, you know, most commonly no convictions, liquor convictions for a year, stuff like that. So it's kind of a checks and balances, not only on our side, but also on the state side to ensure that, you know, there's nothing disqualifying, but there's something that needs, I guess, I don't know, more eyes on it.
A little
if that
extra
makes
attention.
sense. Yes, correct.
So if we vote to approve this and the show cause hearing doesn't go in the applicant's favor,
It'll be denied on the state side, thus denying it on the local side.
I understand. Thank you. That's
And
what
it is very common to have this happen. There's been quite a few that have come before you with the same type of stipulation. And, I mean, I haven't seen one where they've denied it, but it is good to get the applicant before the commissioners to talk about it to ensure that there's not a history or an ongoing history of issues that could
explain
cause
this
issues
case and
to
give an
the-
assurance that the behavior has changed.
Yes, exactly. Correct. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for Investigator Parker? Nope, I think we're good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
So my motion was to approve C, D, and E.
Yes, and I believe we have a second. Any other discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. That ends our liquor resolutions. We can now move on to Section 5, Public Hearing Resolutions. Item 5A is recommendation from the Housing Advisory and Appeals Board regarding the request by Nate Stevenson for reasonable accommodation under Chapter 1.28 of the Lincoln Municipal Code, waiving strict enforcement of the Property Maintenance Code of the City of Lincoln, LMC Title 21.
I have some exhibits for the Council.
Ms. Luttrell, welcome.
Good evening. Abby Luttrell, City Attorney's Office, 555 South 10th Street. And what we have on your agenda tonight. What we have tonight is a request for reasonable accommodation to our local housing code. So I've given you a number of documents there. And I thought I'd kind of walk through factually what's happened so far and the questions before you, and then your applicant, Mr. Stevenson, is here as well. So starting at the beginning here, in out of number order, you'll see Exhibit 4. This is a notice of violation that was sent from the Building and Safety Department to the owners of the applicant's dwelling, and he lives at 1028 South 16th Street. This is just a letter from a housing inspector. On the second page, you will see a list of violations. This is what the provisions of the Lincoln Municipal Code that the Building and Safety Department said that Mr. Stevenson was in violation of. I want to emphasize here that this is the only kind of action that the city has taken at this point. There's been no prosecution, there's been no citations, just this letter. And the name at the top will be different because that's the owner of the property. Mr. Stevenson is the tenant. So that was September 21st, 2023. Our inspectors have been out there a couple of times since. Exhibit 2 in your packet, you'll find there is photographs that were taken by the inspectors on September 20th, 2023. Go through all of them, but if you thumb through that packet, you can see that the property is cluttered with various pieces of personal property.
Ms. Luttrell, is the car on a driveway? It looks like maybe on the next 2 more photos, it looks like it may be on a driveway.
That I don't know. I believe we have someone from Building and Safety here who can answer
Okay.
more specifically. I would agree with you, though. It looks like it's on a driveway, kind of surrounded by other articles of personal property. The inspectors were out again 14 days later on October 4th, 2023. And my understanding is that there's been some improvement, but in our inspector's opinion, it's still in violation of the code, the level of material that is in the yard. So that brings us up to October 4th. Exhibit 1 is the request for reasonable accommodation. So Mr. Stevenson received the notice that we looked at first, which is Exhibit 4, and submitted this request for a reasonable accommodation. And I've highlighted down here at the bottom what I understand to be his requests. First one is, I need more time to get things put away and some to get picked up by others. Without a garage, I will need to keep things outside, such as large tools and equipment. I'm requesting more time to deal with this and permission to keep some stuff outside due to inaccessibility of storage. So, city understands Mr. Stevenson's request to be twofold. One, more time. Doesn't state how much more time. And 2, to be allowed to leave things out in the yard for some also undefined period of time and undefined materials that he'd like to leave in the yard. The way that our process works under Section 1.28 of the Lincoln Municipal Code is that before the request gets to you, it goes to a review board, and the review board for the housing code is the Housing Advisory and Appeals Board for the City of Lincoln. Now, this was uploaded onto your agenda, so that's not an exhibit, and I assume that you've all had an opportunity to read that. At that hearing, Mr. Stevenson appealed. There were two issues that the appeals board heard. First was a direct appeal. The direct appeal is Mr. Stevenson disagreed with the housing inspector's determination that he was in violation of the code. Number two was his request for a reasonable accommodation. The appeals board found that the building inspector's determination was correct, that the state of the property was in violation of the code. Their recommendation on the reasonable accommodation request was to deny the reasonable accommodation request. However, they did say they recommended building and safety grant Mr. Stevenson reasonable time to complete his current projects and clean up the yard before referring the matter for criminal prosecution. That was the recommendation there. I believe that there's sufficient evidence both in the application and in the testimony that Mr. Stevenson gave at the Board of Housing Appeals hearing that Mr. Stevenson is disabled as defined by the Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. I don't think that that's an issue here. I do think that there are challenges with the requests for both more time and for requests to leave his belongings outside indefinitely. The Exhibit 4, the first letter that was sent to Mr. Stevenson's landlords was on September 21st, 2023. It's now December 18th, 2023. My calculation is that's 81 days. So Mr. Stevenson has had almost 3 months to clean up the property. And he also has been unable to articulate how much time he needs to clean up that property. I'd again emphasize that the city has not referred this for prosecution. So at this point, there is only this letter requesting, giving notice that the property is in violation and to get it cleaned up. So it's very difficult for this body to grant an accommodation for more time when that amount of time has not been specified. Which I think kind of rolls into request number 2 from the testimony before the Housing Appeals Board. Mr. Stevenson is a creative guy. He builds and makes things. And I think the board there would agree that the belongings on his property aren't necessarily trash or garbage. However, these projects are ongoing and cycle through. And I think Mr. Stevenson will testify that he would just like to always be able to leave his building materials and tools out in the yard indefinitely. Again, it's very hard for this body to grant a reasonable accommodation for something that is so ill-defined. I'd also draw your attention again on Exhibit 1. At the very bottom, he mentions that a lot of these issues are because there is no garage. And that's unfortunate because I think a garage would solve a lot of Mr. Stevenson's problems. The lack of outdoor storage really seems to be the impediment here to be able to engage in the activity that he wants to on his property, which is building and making things. And without outdoor storage, it's difficult for him to do that under current Lincoln Code. And I just draw your attention to that because it's not it'd be the city staff's position that it's not Mr. Stevenson's disability that's impeding his ability to use and enjoy his dwelling. It's really the lack of outdoor storage. Okay, I think those were all the items I wanted to hit. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
Any questions for Abby? Councilwoman?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I had organized my questions slightly different, but so there doesn't seem to be a difference of opinion between the Housing Appeals Board and the inspectors, the building and safety inspectors, that this property is in violation of municipal code regarding items, personal items in the yard, a fire hazard. So they mentioned the three things, the deficiencies they mentioned. And then overgrown with weeds. So that doesn't seem to be the question here. It really is whether or not, by virtue of this disability or a lack of storage, Mr. Stevenson is unable to enjoy this property, the use of this property.
That's correct. I don't think there's a question from the city's perspective on whether the code is being violated right now. And in order for you to make a determination on the reasonable accommodation, I would assert that you have to assume that he is in violation because the request is to waive our code as it applies to him.
Right, okay. Our code says that the owners have to maintain properties free of litter. And can you walk through just a little bit how that responsibility is shifted to the tenant? I mean, is it shifted to the tenant or in the lease or something?
I think that it could be if the city had chosen to prosecute and it had gotten to the point where there was a criminal prosecution against the owner, then the owner would presumably do like a 1430 notice and use their landlord-tenant relationship to force the tenant to clean up the property. The way that our building code is written, anyone who is impacted by the enforcement of the housing code has grounds to appeal, and so that's how Mr. Stevenson had grounds to appeal. As a tenant, I would say that he has grounds to be here to ask for a reasonable accommodation. Standing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Luttrell, thank you for, this choking seems to be going around. Thank you for coming forward. I'm going to ask questions about the reasonable accommodation.
Okay.
The Fair Housing Act gives an individual with a disability the right to ask for reasonable accommodation.
Correct.
And we, the city, we've seen a lot of these in the last few weeks, so help me refresh my memory. We can deny a reasonable accommodation if it's an undue financial burden to the city,
Correct.
undue bureaucratic burden to the city,
Essentially.
or a fundamental alteration of our existing code.
That's right.
And what you presented here today was that if we grant this, we're ignoring our existing code, which would be a fundamental alteration.
Not exactly. I would say that in this case, the request is not reasonable because the requested accommodation is not clearly defined. It's hard for me to understand what exactly is being asked for, a delay of how long and permission to leave how much, so that I think there's a problem of vagueness, which makes the request unreasonable. I also think that the applicant has failed to demonstrate how the requested accommodation, the philosophy of all of our departments, including building and safety, to work with people to come into compliance. I know that building and safety has offered Mr. Stevenson community resources to help him connect with people who might be able to help him lift heavy things, get his property cleaned up. It's not in your materials, but I will tell you that there was a violation in, I want to say, March of 2023. Another similar letter went out. Mr. Stevenson was able to get his property cleaned up. So I think there are extensive steps taken to help people come into compliance before there's a referral to the prosecution division for citation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but I'm just kind of curious more than anything. With the stuff that's here, you know, I see tools and I see, you know, like a punching bag thing, and then I see like one of those kids, what are they, like remote control things that they ride in, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
If a kid was to go in here and hurt themselves, who would be responsible for that?
I think it would depend whose kid it was. If it was Mr. Stevenson's children, he would obviously be responsible for his own children. There's this theory of attractive nuisance, which is a tort where if you are creating an environment that attracts children and they could be injured, that you could be liable for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Luttrell.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on item 5A? Hello, welcome.
Nate Stevenson, off projects, 1028 South 16th Street. I have a couple of points. Before I get started, I'd like to address, I guess, an error in communicating. Because of my miscommunication, I feel I was really never heard on the appeal. That appeal cost me dearly. $100 is quite significant to my budget. And on this issue, I would hope to be heard. I was just making an aside or a side note that giving two options for the reporting of the problem was sloppy lawmaking. That was my only point there. I had also brought up that giving only 20 days to make the appeal is discriminatory in nature, in that people on disability only get paid once a month. It's only every 30 days, and there was a very good chance that this wouldn't have fallen in my time window to actually do anything about. So yeah, the three parts of my appeal were what was stated but wasn't present in the yard. For instance, you can look at the pictures she showed, or I brought more. There is no overgrown weeds. There is no trash. I clean my trash every other day. I live right off the alley, right off the dumpster, so I mean, I'm cleaning up trash pretty regularly. There is none. There were no branches on the roof. He was there the day after the tree service came and cut away any branches, so I know there was no branches. And he later confirmed that, yeah, he said I'd done something about it, but I assure you I had not. That being said, I'm also confused by the statement in the letter which said that I provided no rebuttal. I thought that's what I was doing, but again, I get confused. These things are a little bit tricky for me. Let's see. Yeah, for the three parts that I had trash and branches, there were none present. He said outdoor furniture, which, yeah, I contend. He says intended use, but I have the right to own property, and I think that gives me the right to say what the intended use of any object is. Fire hazard, there was a gas can on my porch, but those are only stored outside when they're empty. There's a couple more here I can go into more detail on. Now, on the reasonable accommodation, I explained how the condition of the yard and the need for more time are directly linked to my disability. To repeat, whether I do or do not have a garage, and if I wasn't disabled, there'd be no need for accommodation. But since I do not have a garage and am disabled, I have the need for accommodation so that I can enjoy and beautify my property. Asking for more time and less strict enforcement are reasonable requests. There are two main reasons for this. My budget for supplies, tools, and parts is directly linked to my disability. I'm only paid once a month, and I'm at half my wage to work with things. So when I need to buy epoxy, I can only buy 1 gallon a month. It's about $88, which, like I say, is significant. So I'm on my 3rd gallon of epoxy for the pond. That's 3 months right there. So my waiting and my request for more time, although vague, is as specific as it can be. I mean, I'm up against a tight budget, and I've got my disability to work with. I'm limited in mobility. I have chronic fatigue. Yeah, there are all sorts of reasons why I can't get out there and do what I want to do every day on a reasonable time, or I wouldn't say reasonable, on a normal time frame. Yeah, I'm dexterity limited. This means I cannot use or store regular use items such as tools, equipment, and parts inside the house or in the basement. I'd be going up and down stairs all day to get tools that I use. They would be effectively inaccessible, prohibiting my abilities to enjoy and beautify my property the way I would if I wasn't disabled. If I wasn't disabled, I'd just keep the crap in the basement. I'd put it under the porch. I'd build a garage. But I'm disabled. I can't do those things. Because these two reasons are dependent on my being disabled, and I am in a very it is very reasonable that I request more time and a less strict enforcement of the statutes that apply. It's not like I'm asking for a dedicated assistant or a PB&J sandwich every Thursday on the city's dime. What I'm asking for is both reasonable and warranted. Also, speaking of being vague, I had a lot of trouble getting an actual specific list of the things that I was in violation of. I managed to get, there was a pedal bike, an exercise bike, there was a wood pile. There was a couple of things I got specific notice on, and I took care of those. Like it was said, the last time I had this complaint, everything was taken care of in a mostly timely fashion. I did have to ask for more time a few times, but it got done. I'm not above being in compliance. I'm really not. It just so happens that I don't have a garage and I am disabled. Yeah, there's just nothing I can do about either one of those things. And I'm a citizen of this great city. I would like some reasonable accommodation here. And frankly, I would like my appeal to be heard on the merits that it was based on and not by some aside that I made in passing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Councilors, questions? Yes, Councilwoman Washington.
Mr. Stevenson, thank you for coming down. I know that you were here last week and had to leave before, so I'm glad we delayed it so you could come back. How long have you lived at this property, and has there ever been a storage unit?
No, there's never been a storage unit. My concept of time is a little bit skewed. I think maybe 8 to 10 years I've been there. And by and large, with no complaints. I've had 2 in the past year, but one was totally without merit and baseless. And the other, I don't know what it was to address it.
And in part, our city attorney has said that you have not provided clear understanding of how much time it would take for you to clean this up. I appreciate the Housing Appeal Board had asked that there be a little bit of leniency while you work this out with building and safety. I appreciate that. Do you have, and I've heard you speak about your tight budget, but do you have any idea how much time you need to clean up the property or organize it in some way?
With the pond, which is my biggest project, and one that's going to beautify both my house and the neighborhood, that one's gone, horribly over a time schedule. I think I'm on either a year or maybe even 2. I had to go from bringing tarps and like a liner. It was getting torn apart by raccoons over and over again. I replaced it like 12 times, so I switched to concrete. When I did the concrete, I had to pour epoxy to keep it waterproof. Then I found out that epoxy was $88 a month. So I'm on month 3 or 4 of buying epoxy. A lot of the other projects I can wrap up in a tight 6 months. The pond is killing me. I don't want to stop because I'm so freaking close to getting it done, and it is going to beautify the neighborhood. It's going to look great. Yeah, as far as a more specific timeline, I say most things I can get done in 6 months. We'll put it that way.
All right, thank you.
Other questions?
I have some.
Yes, Councilman?
Okay, so one of the things you said is you felt like the appeals board didn't hear you. And so what I'm hearing you say is you felt like the inspector didn't hear you, the chief didn't hear you, and then the appeals board didn't hear you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And one of the issues that I'm hearing you say is that on the list that there was like furniture and because of the intended use. And so one of your issues is that you disagree on what the intended use is for some of the things.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Bean bags. I have these giant-sized bean bags. They're on the back of my house. I don't know if you can see them in the picture. They're on the back of the playhouse. They catch you when you go down the zip line. You wear a little harness and you slam into a big batch of pillows. They're all mold-resistant foam. They're intended for indoor-outdoor use, but they swear at Building and Safety that they are indoor use only. And I contest that greatly, specifically with the bean bags. Another thing they brought up was Christmas trees. I don't use them as Christmas trees. I don't celebrate Christmas. I'm religiously opposed. But I like trees. They're evergreen. They're fake. I don't have to feed them. They can't die. And frankly, they're spot fillers. I live in a neighborhood where if you don't fill the spot where trees cover it, people defecate in those areas. I swear to you, about 2 or 3 times a year, I've got to clean up human feces from these areas. And having fillers there, like fake trees, really keeps them from, well, squatting in that area. They're trees, they're evergreens, they blend in with the actual natural trees that are right next to them. I mean, they're just trees, fake trees. So, yeah, I contend the intended use on that one as well. I'm having trouble thinking of any other specifics, but I think that kind of answers your question.
So that kind of leads into my next question. Hearing you say that you've had issues with trespassing before and people coming onto your property, in the city you have to have a fence around a pool and you have to have alarms to make sure that we protect the safety of folks that may not always make the best decisions, like trespassing. So I'm wondering, what steps have you taken to protect kids from coming onto your property?
I've posted a no trespassing sign. I've posted cameras on all the sides of the house so that I can see, and they have motion sensors that alert me by my phone, so it's always on me to know when someone's close by. I have a sound system, a PA, so I can speak through my cameras to address anyone in the area. And my yard is actually so small. I don't know if you get a gist of it from the pictures there. But really the only problem I could think of would be potentially the pond, which is not a pool. It's less than 2 feet deep, and it's got a dock, and it's less than, I don't know, 3 feet to any wall to get to. I'm a father of kids. I've had young children, and yeah, I'm going to be mindful and attentive to any kids that might wander, I guess, unsupervised into my pond.
So you say you have a small property, but you also have a zip line.
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I'll ask a couple here. So it seems as though from the testimony that we heard from the Assistant City Attorney's Office that you had been out of compliance earlier this year in March of this year, but had gotten cleaned up. And then from the notices that are the photographs that we see here, it looks like we had an inspector go out and take pictures on September 20th, mm-hmm. and then subsequently take more pictures on October 4th, 2023. Yes. And it looks like there had been some cleanup in between September and October, and I'd like to commend you for that. How do you go about cleaning up the sites, either back in March or in October? How do you go about getting that done?
I did all the things that I was going to do anyway. I mean, there was more pressure put on because of the complaint. But I mean, there were things, I don't want a dirty yard, you know, like I want my tools to be put away. I don't have a place to put them. So I used big cans. Basically, I just called in the favors. There were some people that were storing things on my porch. I told them they had to come get it. I put my tools back in the slots in the back. And the air conditioners I actually didn't move. I'm still waiting on, the city offered resources, which I accepted gratefully and have never gotten. Never any kind. I brought it up when I saw the building inspector last time we met here, and he I guess expressed that there was some confusion as to whether or not I was accepting the assistance, but I did and am very, very willing to let people help me move things. The air conditioners are really the only big one that I think is an issue as far as getting moved.
then the cleanup when you had cleaned up the property previously earlier this year, back in the March timeframe, same situation there of.
Yeah, it was all things I wanted to get done anyway. Like I just put a little bit of extra pressure on, and I got it done. I called in my brothers, called in a couple of favors, and yeah.
Okay. Yes, Councilman?
Just one more question that I have. Knowing that there's a disagreement on some of the things on here, can you tell me what all is on your property right now?
Oh, what all? I got the car, the zip line, the playhouse, the pond, the vending machine, the wood pile. There's a substantial wood pile, but I use it for my business and my hobbies. It's not scrap wood, it's actual lumber. And it's on a cart raised above the ground and wrapped in a tarp tight so no animals can habitate it. I think that's about everything. There was an exercise bike, which I was going to use for a Rube Goldberg machine, but that's kind of gotten put off. I'm trying to think. Oh, there's also a tree house. I think that's everything.
Okay, so I'm hearing a zip line, playhouse, pond, vending machine, wood pile, cart that's raised, tarp, exercise bike, and a tree house on your property.
Yep. And very, very small property. I'm kind of proud of how I got it all to fit.
And you mentioned that you use the wood pile for your business. What kind of business do you have?
I run a modification shop. It's whatever you could ask for. Putting a Furby's face and electronics into the tower of a PC so that it winks at you whenever you turn on the PC. Cutting specific holes into a dashboard of a car, adding lights and whatever might be needs. I modify things to fit customer needs.
That sounds pretty interesting. How many customers do you?
Not many.
Not many? Okay. Thank you.
And as an aside, I've gotten even fewer customers since the city told me to take down my light-up sign, which, as far as I know, never actually had a complaint. It's just that it was there at the time of inspection, so it got pulled.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And, I just have one more quick question for you as well. This right here, is this a playhouse?
Yeah, it's a castle.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you for hearing me.
Is there anyone else here who would like to testify on this item? Anyone else here for item 5A?
I got a question for the city.
Sure. Who specifically, Councilman, would you like to speak with? Abby? Okay.
Abby, is this location a duplex? Because the pictures have two different addresses on them.
No, and I should correct that. On Exhibit 3.
I see 1614D, and then there's the 1028 South 16th.
1028 South 16th. Same property. That file stamp there is wrong, but it's the same property.
The only thing I would like to say is that I've driven by this place and I've always wondered who lived there, if anybody lived there, because it's so trashy. It's really a sight to see, and it needs to be cleaned up.
Questions? Any other questions at all? Okay, very good. Thank you, Ms. Luttrell. Yes, Councilman?
I do have one more question.
Please.
Mr. Duden asked a question earlier, and I'd like someone from Building and Safety
Sean?
to come forward and talk about the process and what, Mr. Carlson asked a question earlier, excuse me, about where do we go from here?
Welcome, Sean.
Thanks. Sean Stewart, 855 South 10th. I'm the Chief Housing Inspector for Building and Safety.
Mr. Stewart, thank you for coming forward. How did you find out about this property, and then where do we go from here after this comes before the City Council? What's the next step?
Complaints are filed through various different methods, either through the hotline, See, Click, Fix, different reporting agencies people call in. I'm not sure how this one came in, but so yeah, after this point, we'll make contact with Mr. Stevenson again, try to work out getting him some volunteers to help him clean up and give him more time, as much time pretty much as he needs. So, I mean, in general, we try to work with people and give them as much time as they need to get the things resolved. Our objective is not to prosecute them.
So just to back up a little bit, so you don't like patrol the city looking for properties, you respond to complaints from residents in our community?
Correct. It's done on a complaint
So
basis.
someone in our community had some concerns?
Correct.
And they brought it to your attention?
Correct.
And the other thing I think you said was, you as the representative of the city desire to bring people into compliance rather than to charge them criminally, is that?
Correct, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for Sean? Okay. Very good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Any other questions before we move on to the next item? Okay, very good.
Can anyone else speak on this item?
Yes, you're more than welcome to come and speak on item 5A.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually here for something else tonight, but Nate is my neighbor, and I just wanted to say he's a really great neighbor. I think whoever complained probably hasn't taken the time to get to know him and just looks at the surface. So I just wanted to say that, and I hope you can take that into consideration and grant his request.
For the record, could you please give us your name and address,
Yes,
please?
Lizzie Turner, 1614 D Street.
Thank you, Lizzie. Appreciate it. If you would like to come up, please come. If there's anyone who would like to speak on item 5A, now is your time to do so. We have two microphones open. We will take one testifier and then after another. So if there's anyone else who would like to testify, please go ahead and come up and get ready at the other microphone. Sir, yes, welcome.
My name's Paul. I haven't seen this gentleman's property or know about it, but I was listening, I saw the pictures, and I was like, this is actually like a pretty interesting situation. It sounds like he's like cleaning up and stuff, and I have actually been on a receiving end of a similar situation in a couple of different times where I felt like kind of berated by different parts of the city for having something like, there was one situation where there was a compost pile that a neighbor didn't like the aesthetic looks of, and she was actually littering through her construction company. And it's like, you know, why are there like norms on aesthetics? Like, why can't people have something that is a little bit goofy if it's not causing harm to anybody? Like, we have all these McMansion suburban neighborhoods on the outskirts of town that have like dyed mulch. They use Roundup that's like infecting people with diseases and stuff. And there's like a bunch of actually gross stuff that's happening in the name of like homogenization of aesthetics. Meanwhile, people will call in and complain about something that doesn't fit their like rectangular view of the way the world should look to them. And a lot of other people who are conditioned to believe that the world should be seen in that way will kind of gang up on people who are honestly making the world a more interesting and like vibrant place. I understand that there's like balance that needs to be had in the world. I don't think people should be allowed to have trash around, but it doesn't sound like this guy, this cool guy behind me, in my opinion, based off of hearing him speak and hearing what his situation is, I don't think he's trying to spread a bunch of garbage all over the place. Yeah, so that's all I have to say about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to testify? Please come on up, one after another. Sir, if you're ready, if you're both ready, please come on down. Go ahead, sir. If you want to go ahead and come on up to the other microphone, we'll just go back and forth. If you would like to testify, try to keep it as timely as possible. Yes, sir. Floor is
Sam
yours.
Carrillo, 4722 Hillside. I was actually kind of wondering who's actually doing these, making these complaints, because I personally had 4 complaints against me last year from the Weed Authority, and they were actually reaching me beforehand. I also know that there was also 3 other people that are kind of in the same, I guess, political party that also got called on for the same thing. We had a Weed Authority official come over and say that we were in violation, but when asked, that weed official said, when asked which plants were in violation, they didn't know, but they named a specific plant that was in violation. So I have a feeling that there's other people calling these violations in and targeting individuals. And I would like you guys to look into the targeting of individuals who are being, I'd like to see, if you're gonna make a complaint, put your name behind it. I called the police department the other day. They made me put my name behind my complaint. I don't know why we get to anonymously complain about people this way. So that's all I got to say, because I personally feel targeted. And when I get my art in my yard, my garden in my yard, I'm going to continue to be targeted. And eventually, I'll probably find myself in the same position as this gentleman. So I would really like to look at another part of this issue, which is targeting of individuals. And if you guys could take some time to do that, and maybe find a way to make these complaints less anonymous, because I'd like to see somebody put their name behind it. Let's see if it's actually his neighbor calling, or somebody who drives by that doesn't like his, doesn't like his yard, thinks it's ugly. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Hello,
Hi,
welcome.
my name is Michael Lemer. I live in. I just wanted to say that I have walked by this house many times, and it struck me as something that was interesting. It was a more interesting house than the neighbors, but it didn't strike me as something. It didn't make me upset. I didn't see it and say, "Oh, there's something wrong here." I looked at it and said, I just saw a very creative individual. I didn't see any garbage on the property. There was a vending machine, which was the first thing that struck me, and I saw the playhouse, and I saw the zip line, and I was like, wow, that's a lot. Like, it was a lot, but it was creative and fun, and it wasn't garbage. It was intentional. It was created. I found it to be art. That was my assessment. It made me smile that someone was doing that. I thought that it was a service to the community. The vending machine had things that were just the kind of thing that maybe community members might need for hygiene or for health. And so I thought that increased accessibility. So there was a lot of thought put into it. It was meant to be a service to the community as a vending machine, I thought, instead of being something that was a deficit. But it did look self-created. It didn't look something that was like manufactory as much as something that had an artistic aspect to it. So that's the impression I got. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to testify on this item? Anyone else here for 5A? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to 5B.
Item 5B is amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 CIP to authorize and appropriate $1 million in TIF funds for the West Haymarket Street and Streetscape project generally located between R and N streets, including Canopy Street in downtown Lincoln.
Director Hine, welcome.
Good evening. Peter Hine, Director of Urban Development, 555 South 10th Street. Great to be here tonight on my first CIP amendment in this role. It's exciting. We have 2 things to talk about. First is $1 million investment, and I'll read through just a few points. This is for the West Haymarket. And in August 21st, 2023, the City Council approved the West Haymarket redevelopment project within the Lincoln Center redevelopment plan. It's generally located at Nth and R Street, as you know, and it authorizes and appropriates additional funds to design, construct improvements within the project area. Specifically, this is for street and public improvements. in this area, one of the areas we're looking at is, I'll put up two of these. It's always that moment of anticipation. Underneath the overpass, we are looking at doing landscaping, curb, and improvement in this area. And then secondly, zoom in even more on this one. On N Street, just north of Haymarket Park, we're looking at the safe pedestrian crossings across N Street, as you know, to connect into our parking garage that we have on the south side. So that's really the extent of the first request that we're here tonight for. Any questions on that before I go to the second?
Any questions for Director Hein?
Okay. The second one is 3.6 million, a little bit.
Director Hein,
Yes.
I'm going to stop you here really quickly. I'm going to take public comment on 5B.
Okay.
And then we'll bring you back up for 5C because they are listed as two separate items.
Okay, I'll do it.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Before we do that, any questions for Director Hein on 5B? I know, I keep calling you back and forth. I apologize. Okay, I see none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here who would like to testify or testify on item 5B? Anyone here who would like to speak on 5B? Okay, seeing none. Brandy, would you call us for 5C, please?
5C is amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 CIP to authorize and appropriate $3.6 million in TIF funds for the Haymarket South Streetscape Parking Project, generally located between N and J Streets and 4th and 9th Streets in downtown Lincoln.
All right, we'll have Director Hein back.
Okay. Peter Hein, Director of Urban Development, 555 South 10th Street. Yay. This is exciting. As you know, well, let me read the specifics and then I'll get into some other nuanced parts of it. On August 21st, again, 2023, we passed a resolution to amend the South Haymarket Project Area 8N College Housing TIF sub-project. The amendment included the future South Haymarket Park and identified additional TIF available to use toward project goals. The goal of the project are to address parking, pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular circulation and connectivity, parking, contextual placemaking, collaboration with other public and private improvements, a park, and resiliency of the district. Additional funding may also be used toward design of public improvements, acquisition of vacated rights-of-way, and other private property for park and or parking connectivity, construction of additional public improvements, including street and streetscape improvements in coordination with other projects in the next 2 to 6 years. So this is all, we have to do a lot of work to sort of get ready to do things. And as you know, South Haymarket Park is in design and coming forward. It's a very exciting project for the city, for the Haymarket. I'm putting up a few images just to sort of orient you to where the park is. And this appropriation isn't just for the park, but we're talking about connectivity. We're talking about right-of-way, acquisition of property, re-looking at the public realm in terms of parking and access and streetscape. So the first project that we just talked about, N Street is just to the north, talking about that. We're creating a 7+ acre park to the south, and of course we're going to be using that parking garage for access here. So this amendment is really looking at a few pieces of property that we're looking to acquire. Most importantly, to also look at the right-of-way, to get the right-of-way back into ownership so that we can access the park and have new roadway and parking. So I will zoom into this area here. So before we had this conversation about two buildings, 540 and 600, that we'll be looking at and negotiating with the current owner. We're also looking at the piece of right-of-way that's also included in those two properties right now. The Gray Road, this is not a public street, but actually a park roadway that's looking at, again, it's very preliminary right now, That road may or may not be there as part of the park. What will be there is access to the park. So what we're here to talk about is street improvements, access to the park, continuity of the streetscape. This is really the place where we can connect for bicycles and streets and parking to get people into the park. And we gain approximately 0.7 acres for the park. So let me kind of zoom in and show you the area that we're focusing on. So the right-of-way that we're looking at runs right between building 540 and 600, right through here. This is L Street. That I'll zoom out and drop my pen all at the same time. And you can see the right-of-way is here running north, and we just have this piece between these two buildings is critical for that right-of-way to get back. And then the 540 building, this piece of land right here, which is 0.7 acres. Lots of moving of paper here, so bear with me so that you can understand it. And you can see here this sort of light gray or white area is where we're going to have potentially parking, potentially street, bike access. And then this 540 building, we will be getting that as a clean slate that will be added to the park. So we'll be actually adding roughly 0.7 acres to the park itself for this addition. You can also see we have lots of things to work out. That's why we're asking to appropriate these funds so that we can go and work with all of the property owners. We're also going to be looking at parking on the street. And you can see that this actually purchases a portion of the center of the street that goes back into the park to allow us to do a lot more things in the South Haymarket Park. So with that, I'll put it out for questions for any of you, and I can put any of these back up. I'll keep them here. And it's really exciting to think of a new hub and more access to the park.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for Director Hein? Yes, Councilwoman, please.
Initially, microphone. All right. Initially, I don't have a question. I have a comment. This is really exciting to see the South Haymarket Park begin to take shape around the edges. I was on the Park and Rec Advisory Board back in the late 90s, and when we started to talk about that maybe there could be a South Haymarket Park, this is really beginning to look quite exciting, and I can see that there have been some changes, and so I'd like you to explain just a little bit of the changes. What's happened to make it possible for us to look at that park roadway going all the way through? Is there something else that we need to be prepared for looking ahead?
Well, really, the change is that we have the opportunity collectively to purchase both the 540 and the 600 building together as one transaction. The current owner of those buildings wants to sell them as one package, and so came to us first, knowing that we are developing the park. It gains us about 150 feet on the edge of the park, so we gain edge to the park. And so that's just critical in creating that, really the connectivity to it. Because before that, all of our connection was just on N Street. And so now we're finding different ways to bring safe traffic, safe pedestrians, safe bicycles, skateboarders, and the public into the park as we develop this. It also creates, if we think of the hub and soul, which is an event that I go to, a place we go to for breakfast, a place we walk through, ride our bikes through. This creates a similar hub. What it looks like, what it is, what's the use, who's going to be leasing it, what are those things. That's all to come later on, and we're going to be aggressively looking at creative public uses for that. And so that's really where we are at this point to move forward. I would also say that this is a collaboration with the parks. Maggie's here, I think, still. And I would also say Hallie Salem being, knowing the history of everything we've done in the Haymarket. This is helping to link from Pinnacle Bank Arena that, I was on 15 years ago, starting to have those conversations. And also, when I started a few months ago, South Haymarket might be 20 years away. The development happening to the south, this was sort of a light bulb. Well, if this could happen and this could happen. So when we see these sort of catalyst things that happen, it really spurs others to look at it. So public and private partnerships that can really move the ball forward is really exciting. So that's what I would say.
And then I just have one last question. I know in pulling together the lands for the South Haymarket Park, we really looked at redeveloping a brownfield and making it open for public use. And so if the city moves forward to purchase 540, 600, because 540 is going to go into parkland, are there brownfield issues that we need to be thinking about?
Currently, what we've been told is the phase one, which is the only phase one that's happened, didn't come back with anything. And typically you have a phase one, and the phase one sort of raises the flag, says we should go to phase two and we should look at more. With that being said, we haven't done the demolition yet.
Okay.
So when the demolition happens, we would probably do another phase one to make sure there's nothing left, nothing contaminated on site. So we would just take that as it comes. But right now, our understanding is that there is no brownfield issues.
Okay, and your phase one is your phase one environmental screening form?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Any other questions for Director? Yes, Councilman Duden?
What was on that site before it became vacant or whatever, where you want to put this park?
Currently, there is essentially a paint shop. It's a place that does steel fabrication, and they do powder coating and other things like that. That's contained.
Where was Knighton Iron and Metal salvage yard?
That south of this, as I understand it. South of this.
South of the N Street.
Yes, is that true? Knighton, the salvage yard?
The altar scrap?
Yeah.
To the north.
The altar scrap. Yeah, that was to the north, and that's part of the park itself. Yeah.
I guess my problem with this project is that the citizens of Lincoln need their streets repaired and need either trees trimmed, and we're 3 or 4 years behind on that project, and yet where we want to develop a new area, new park, new trees, and we don't take care of what we have now. That's my problem with this project.
Finished?
Yep, I'm
okay.
finished.
Any other questions? Director Hein, could you remind us of the financing mechanism being used for this particular project?
Yeah, so we're the 8N. I can actually put up a calculation if you'd like. I really have to zoom in. Oh, maybe not. This is really focusing on the two buildings, the 540 and the 600 building. We're also looking at other public improvements around that, but suffice it to say that right now, if I zoom in to the 8N, so in 15, the 8N Collegiate Housing Redevelopment sub-project had a value of $890,000. The 2023 assessed value is $44 million. And so that TIF excess tax is $796,000. And so in 2023, we're going to have $863,000. So as those monies come in, what we're looking at doing is doing an interagency loan that we can do, that we can pay for those. I think I'm getting way too specific on some of those, because there's lots of things to talk about. We need to work with parks. We need to work with how the TIF funding, what the TIF funding is going to be used for. That's really the second thing that we're going to be coming to you and defining. Right now, we're looking at this as trying to appropriate these funds so that we can use it to really put a plan together. We can't really negotiate or put a plan together if we haven't appropriated these funds.
And so all of the funds that you anticipate using for this project, all of these funds you anticipate being tax increment financing dollars?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Director Hein. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else here who would like to testify on item 5C? Anyone here to speak? Oh, yes, Director
Can I say
Hein.
one more thing?
Yes, sir.
I was just reading a book about the redevelopment of New York City, and I saw a really great quote, and that is, not long after the city finished Central Park, the property values on the park, they thought were going to go up, and they went up 9 times over a period of time. since they've gone up 250 times. So doing this park and thinking about value that it can give to the citizens and to the city, I think is really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on item 5C? Anyone else here for 5C? Yes? Welcome.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sam Whitney, 3133 Wildbriar Lane. And let me tell you that I'm real excited for this park. I think it's a great idea. I think we should definitely go with it. I just have a couple questions. How is it going to connect into the, like, how does this affect the, like, connection into the current, like, bicycle route?
Mm-hmm.
Is kind of, like, the big one. I guess it's not really pertinent to this purchase, but, yeah. Then the other one is how, it's also more of a question for the later part of this stuff, but how are we going to deal with, like, public housing and, like, low-income housing and stuff like that? So.
Thank you for coming down. Since we have some of the information on the first part of your question, let's talk about connection into trails and connection into biking. And I don't know if that's Director Stuckey Ross that would like to come forward and discuss that, because I think there are some preliminary ideas.
Yeah, good evening, Maggie Stuckey Ross, Parks and Recreation. So with this park, one of our critical pieces of our plan is to finally make a connection from the in-street cycle track to the start of the Jamaica North at 4th and J. And we have been challenged by the existing uses down there and the shape of, we fondly call it Tornado Park. That shape looks like a tornado. That doesn't have anything to do with what's going to happen there. Yes, we're knocking on all the wood. How we're going to get that trail through. So truly, this is such a great opportunity for us. With the 540 and 600 acquisition, we are going to have a more clear route to get south. Right now, we didn't really have a great solution for how that trail was going to connect. So looking here, can you zoom out? My hand was really large. Okay. You're going to come off the in-street cycle track and likely come down the west side of the park. And when we regain this right-of-way, you're going to come back out. Likely, we're going to have an on-street path there down 6th Street to get you to Jamaica North. Okay. We're hoping for other solutions in the future, but I think that's probably what we're looking at this point. But again, that wouldn't have been an option if that right-of-way wasn't returned to city ownership. So we really appreciate Urban's work to make this happen.
Anything else you'd like to add, Director Hine?
I was just going to add on the affordable housing question that came up. As you know, we just had a project in front of us that's adding 173 affordable housing units just a couple of blocks.
About 4 blocks away from here?
It's about, yeah, exactly. About 4 blocks away on N Street on the bike path. That will connect into this park. And we are looking thoughtfully, creatively on other projects that we'd like to see coming on that will, as you know, with extreme blight projects, have a 20%, as people come in front of us for TIF financing, have 20% of their units be affordable. And then we have other people that are doing 100% affordable projects coming forward. And so by my count, there's 450 affordable units about to be under construction. And we have some under construction now, pouring concrete. Just today, we were moving a city utility line that was across the corner of a building. And so the level of discussion and work that's happening in affordable housing is really inspiring in Lincoln. And the creativity from the private side and the design community is really wonderful to see.
Right. Very good. Thank you both for helping us answer that question. We appreciate it. Brandy, let's go ahead and move on to 5D.
Item 5D is approving the consent to assignment agreement between the city and SMG ASM Global Parent Incorporated to provide that Legends Hospitality Holding Company LLC will, through merger, assume ASM Global Parent Incorporated contractual relationship with the city in 2024 to operate and manage Pinnacle Bank Arena.
Chris, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Chris Connolly, Chief Assistant City Attorney, 555 South 10th Street. About 4 years ago, we came to the council concerning a similar assignment when SMG, who runs Pinnacle Bank Arena for us, was sold to ASM Global. And in the wild world of mergers and acquisitions, we're here to talk about it again. This time ASM Global is being sold to Legends Hospitality. And according to the agreement that was approved last year with ASM Global at that time, if there's to be a change in the ownership of the management company, it's up to the city council to consent or not consent to that assignment of the contract to the new entity, which will be Legends. Actually, I believe there will be a subsidiary of Legends that will actually own ASM Global, but for practical purposes, we'll just know it as Legends. And so in any event, Legends is known as a large company in this space, well known for their activity in the entertainment industry. And so they're a big player, and they have told us that they are not going to be making changes to the local staff, which is very important to us. And we have no reason to believe otherwise. And so we're here to ask the council to approve it. We were going to try and have Tim Savona, the general manager, come up and talk to you tonight. He's been on the road and he didn't. He got back late this afternoon, and he called me, or not called me, he texted me from the airport and told me he wasn't going to be able to make it. But he's excited about this change, and so I think we're ready to go with it. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Conley? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate it. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on item 5D? Anyone else here who would like to speak on item 5D? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to the voting session.
That ends our public hearing. We will start with the vote on 5A. Recommendation from the Housing Advisory and Appeals Board regarding the request by Nate Stevenson for reasonable accommodation under Chapter 1.28 of the Lincoln Municipal Code, waiving strict enforcement of the Property Maintenance Code of the City of Lincoln, LMC Title 21, was introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second. Second, Carlson. Discussion. Yes, Councilman Schob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we're going to vote yes or no on this, and I'm not sure what a yes or no vote means. Are we voting yes to approve the waiver or yes to uphold the code? Could I have someone from legal help me understand what I should do?
I think Abby is here to help.
The resolution in front of you is to approve the reasonable accommodation.
So a vote yes is to approve, and a vote no is
to deny. Correct. Does that help, sir?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or comments?
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you for asking. And I also want to be really clear that I really appreciate what Building and Safety, I don't see it right now, but what Building and Safety is doing with Mr. Stevenson and providing him time to work out what needs to happen to organize his belongings on his property. We have not been asked specifically for an amount of time, and I really appreciate Mr. Stevenson providing maybe the 6-month time frame. And so I don't have anything else to say beyond supporting what the appeals board did and suggesting that Building and Safety work with the tenant to make certain that we're moving toward compliance and not prosecution. But I agree, I concur with our city attorney who says that a request for reasonable accommodation at this point, even with the 6 months as offered today, is still very vague. And I don't want to provide a reasonable accommodation for a very vague request. These are serious matters, and when we have a decision to make a reasonable accommodation, I want it to be very clear and have parameters around it.
I concur with Councilwoman Washington. I think that the board has been very clear when they said that they did not see that this is a mechanism that was fit for the resolution of the problem here. That I did not find that the request for reasonable accommodation was fit in this particular circumstance. But I did concur that a reasonable amount of time to complete the current cleanup project is sufficient. And I appreciate Building and Safety and Sean in particular working through that process. Any other comments before we vote? All right, seeing none, please call the roll.
Duden?
No.
Washington?
No.
Weber,
No.
Bowers,
No.
Carlson,
No.
Schob,
No.
Beckius.
No.
Motion failed, 6. Item 5B is amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 CIP to authorize and appropriate $1 million in TIF funds for the West Haymarket Street and Streetscape project generally located between R and N streets, including Canopy Street in downtown Lincoln, introduced by Weber.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Washington, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5C is amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 CIP to authorize and appropriate $3.6 million in TIF funds for the Haymarket South Streetscape parking project generally located between N and J Streets and 4th and 9th Streets in downtown Lincoln, introduced by Weber.
So moved.
Second. Second, Carlson, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Carlson,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
No.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1. Item 5D is approving the consent to assignment agreement between the city and SMG ASM Global Parent Incorporated to provide that Legends Hospitality Holding Company LLC will, through merger, assume ASM Global Parent Incorporated contractual relationship with the city in 2024 to operate and manage Pinnacle Bank Arena, introduced by Weber.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Schob. Sorry. Discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. All right, that ends our public hearing. We can now move on to ordinances, third reading and related resolutions. Item 6A is approving amendment number 2 to lease agreement between the city and Lincoln Trap and Skeet Club to update terms and conditions and extend the term to the lease agreement, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Weber, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Duden,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 6B is text amendment 23014, request of Matt and Angela Connell to amend Lincoln Municipal Code Section 27.72.010, height and lot regulations, AG and AGR districts, to provide an exception that the minimum frontage requirement shall not apply for lots of 20 acres or more zoned AG and created prior to January 1st, 2017, and lots without frontage shall be non-buildable unless they have a permanent access easement, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 6C is change of zone 23068, application of NeighborWorks Lincoln to change the zoning designation from R2 Residential District to R5 Residential District on property generally located at 4618 Pioneers Boulevard, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson, discussion.
This is some of those affordable housing units that we were discussing just a moment ago.
And I think that I'll piggyback off of that comment. I think NeighborWorks did a nice job of taking the
Community garden?
the concept of the higher density into use here from the R2 to R5, and to also utilize other tools in order to achieve the CUP here as well. Councilman Schob, was there something you wanted to add?
No, I was trying to anticipate what you were saying
Oh.
and help out, and I screwed up royally.
Oh, very good. Any other comments on 6C? Okay, please call the roll.
Carlson,
Yes.
Duden,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beckius.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 6D is amending Chapter 8.20 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to the Lincoln Food Code by amending Sections 8.20.080 Food Establishment, Permits Required, and Section 8.20260 Enforcement, Inspections to allow reciprocity for food trucks permitted outside the jurisdiction of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Health Department to operate on a temporary basis within the city pursuant to LB 562, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second. Second, Carlson, discussion. Councilman?
I just have one comment that I'd like to make before we vote on this. I just wanted to remind folks that this came in front of the Board of Health, and the Board of Health recommended approval. For folks that aren't aware, the Board of Health includes not only city and county folks, but also a dentist, a physician, and a veterinarian, and we also have representation from the food industry. And the entire board voted unanimously for recommendation for approval by the council.
Very good. Please call the roll.
Bowers?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Duden?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 6E is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter A by creating the classification Sustainability Specialist, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Duden?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 6F is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter C by creating the classification Urban Development Construction Manager, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Duden?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 6G is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter C by changing the title from Traffic Sign Worker to Traffic Sign and Marking Technician, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Washington?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Duden?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 6H is amending Lincoln Municipal Code Section 2.76.153 Compensation Plan, Merit Pay Plan, Shift Differential to add shift differential provisions for additional employee classifications and to clarify shift differential times and rates for each classification by amending Section 2.76.155 Compensation Plan, Longevity Pay to provide for longevity pay for additional employee classifications and to update and clarify existing longevity provisions by amending Section 2.76175 Compensation Plan, Promotion, Transfer, or Demotion to pertain specifically to promotion-related compensation by repealing Section 2.76.207 Compensation Plan, Disaster Response Pay, by amending Section 2.76340, Appointments to remove references to promotion, by adding a new section number 2.76.341 entitled Promotions to provide for conditions related to promotions, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Carlson, discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Weber?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Duden?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 6I is amending Lincoln Municipal Code Section 2.78.010 Management Compensation Plan established to clarify authorities and roles related to management compensation by amending Section 2.78.020 Management Compensation Plan Annual Leave to provide operational guidance regarding the accrual and use of vacation leave for department heads and administrative assistants to elected officials by amending Section 2.78.030 Management Compensation Plan Sick Leave to establish the availability and use of leave when unable to perform work due to traditional sick leave purposes by amending Section 2.78.040 Management Compensation Plan Other Leave to provide for an aligned use of leave for situations other than vacation or sick leave purposes, by amending Section 2.78.060 the resignation to provide guidance for resignation and retirement of department heads and administrative assistants to elected officials, by amending Section 2.78.070 health insurance, continuation of city contribution after retirement to address the circumstances under which health insurance coverage may continue after retirement of department heads or administrative assistants to elected officials. Introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second. Second, Carlson. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Bowers?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Chobe?
Yes.
Duden?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 6J is approving the Kinney Industrial District Project Redevelopment Agreement between the city and Baby Bowl LLC relating to the redevelopment of the property generally located on the south side of Superior Street between North 30th and North 35th Street, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second. Second, Carlson. Discussion? I'll just take a quick moment to thank Kinney Manufacturing for their continued investment in the city of Lincoln to not only keep expanding their footprint here in the city, but also their workforce as well. And then also utilizing the redevelopment of this ground to open up additional industrial opportunities in this particular Superior Street corridor. It will be, I think, a boon for that area. Go ahead and call the roll.
Carlson?
Yes.
Chobe?
Yes.
Duden?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 6K is amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 CIP to authorize and appropriate $4,600,000 in TIF funds for the Kinney Industrial Redevelopment Project, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second. Second, Carlson. Discussion?
I'm glad
Yes,
there are,
Councilwoman.
yeah, I'm really glad there are risk takers in Lincoln who are willing to make investments and to stretch us into new areas. So thank you.
Please call the roll.
Chobe?
Yes.
Duden?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 6L is authorizing the issuance of tax allocation bonds for the Kinney Industrial Redevelopment Project in an amount not to exceed $4,600,000, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second. Second, Carlson. Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Chobe?
Yes.
Duden?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. That ends our voting. Resolutions, first reading are items 7A through 7E. Our ordinances, first reading are items 8A through 8E. And we still have one item on pending list, item 9A.
This moves us into our period of public comment. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter not on this agenda, nor plan to appear on a future agenda, may do so at this time. Individuals are allowed a total of 5 minutes to speak, regardless of the number of topics. For this month, open microphone was on December 11th and is tonight on December 18th. We have 2 microphones up here and I believe a fair amount of speakers. And so what I would ask is speaker 1 to line up at one microphone, speaker 2 to line up at the next microphone, and then we will alternate back and forth. I will, yes?
Quick
Councilman?
question. Can we take a 10-minute break? Because we'll hit the 2-hour mark in about 10 minutes. So instead of breaking up public comment, we just go ahead and take a 10-minute break now.
Sure. Is council? Okay. We will go ahead and take a 10-minute break now. We will reconvene. We'll take a little bit more than a 10-minute break. We will reconvene at 7:35.
Yeah, okay.
Welcome back, everyone, to this meeting of the Lincoln City Council. Before we move into public comment, I just want to reiterate what I said before we took our break there. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter not on this agenda nor planned to appear on a future agenda may do so at the open microphone session here tonight. Individuals are allowed a total of 5 minutes to speak regardless of the number of topics. And I'll actually have Madam Clerk explain to everyone our timekeeping system that's in front of our testifiers.
Yes, so in front of each microphone, you will see a timer, just so everybody's aware. It will start out green, and then when you have 1 minute left, it turns to yellow, and then it turns red when your time is up.
And once again, we will have people line up on either side. We have 2 microphones from which to speak. And as soon as one speaker is done, if we could just have the next speaker go on up and come on up to the microphone, we will go from there. Who's speaking first?
I'll go first.
All right, very well. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Jess Giesecke, and I am a landlord. While I currently do not have tenants that are paying with Section 8 vouchers, I'm proud to say that I will happily accept them. I'm actually here this evening on behalf of the Coalition for the Source of Income Protection and Housing, and I am here to make a special delivery. Our coalition is comprised of multiple housing advocates and impacted individuals, as well as the following organizations: Asian Community and Cultural Center, the Arc of Nebraska, Center for People, Civic Nebraska, Clinton Neighborhood Organization, Collective Impact Lincoln, the Hub Central Access Point, Intertribal Spiritual Lodges, League of Women Voters of Lincoln and Lancaster County, Nebraska Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, Nebraskans for Peace, NeighborWorks Lincoln, Proyecto Cultural, Stand-In for Nebraska, and Voices of Hope. We've come together as people who have seen the great and urgent need to end source of income discrimination. Currently, prospective tenants in Lincoln can be turned away from rental units simply because of how they would pay their rent. Housing choice vouchers are a critical tool in helping low-income families establish stability and escape the cycle of poverty. Source of income discrimination is also used to deny housing to those living on other benefits like Social Security, disability, Veterans Affairs supportive housing vouchers, single moms who rely on child support payments, and even hourly workers without guaranteed monthly salaries. Lincoln landlords frequently impose unfair conditions or outright refuse to rent to voucher holders. Source of income discrimination also allows landlords to engage in the worst kinds of racial discrimination, refusing to rent properties in desirable areas to communities of color, disproportionately impacting Black and Latino renters. Nearly 1 in 3 voucher recipients in Lincoln lose their benefits before they are able to find a home to rent. However, studies have shown that if Lincoln were to ban source of income discrimination, we could essentially cut Lincoln's voucher failure rate in half. As of November 2023, 23 states and 134 local jurisdictions have outlawed source of income discrimination without any negative impact on property values or community safety. Included in that list are St. Louis, Phoenix, Denver, Minneapolis, Columbus, and Memphis. Lincolnites need and deserve these protections. The Coalition for Source of Income Protections and Housing, along with over 530 individuals that have signed this petition, urge you to introduce an ordinance to ban source of income discrimination in the city of Lincoln and create a more equitable and prosperous future for all residents.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions for our testifier?
I have one.
Yes, Councilwoman Washington.
Thanks, Ms. Giesecke. You said that if we employed SOI, we would cut the voucher failure rate by 50%. Did you say that?
That is correct. Studies have shown this.
Okay, and where were those studies based, please?
I would probably direct that question to one of the other housing advocates that could probably better answer that, that did pull that
Okay, yeah, I'd just like to
research.
know the context. Thanks.
Councilman Bowers.
I just had a quick question. So as a landlord, one of the things that I have heard from a lot of folks has been that in order to accept Section 8, you have to get approved by Lincoln Housing Authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've heard is that Lincoln Housing Authority is not consistent in what they ask out of landlords, or that the requirements are really outrageous. Have you had that experience, or can you kind of walk me through what your experience has been with Lincoln Housing Authority?
I have not. When I first purchased my property, in fact, actually, when I first became a landlord, I didn't realize that it was even legal to discriminate against people that were using housing vouchers to pay their rent. When I first purchased my property, I had to go through the certificate of compliance process. And I've looked at, what Lincoln Housing Authority requires as far as, there's things like window screens and, I'm drawing a blank on everything that they require, but I don't feel that they are much different than what building and safety already requires of landlords. That, at least for apartment complexes. I can't speak to, necessarily single-family dwellings or duplexes, but, you're required to have window screens during certain months of the year and hardwired smoke alarms. Things like, I remember having to put in some GFCI outlets and make repairs to, there was a little kick plate that had come off of a dishwasher that I had to repair. And it was a huge list of things that I had to do to get into compliance, but none of them were unreasonable, I don't think. So.
How many folks over your career have you rented that utilized housing vouchers?
I had one that was using, their income was basically a Medicaid waiver payment, which is not a Section 8 voucher per se, but it's the individual was living with a disability. I've also rented to self-employed individuals and students that were working on their doctorate that were not employed at the time and were using grants and student loans to pay their rent.
But like with Section 8 specifically, how many individuals have you rented?
I have not rented to anybody with Section 8 specifically, but I haven't discriminated based on anybody's source of income.
And so this, I'm trying to get like an idea of the process with Lincoln Housing Authority because I'm not a landlord. If someone came to you with Section 8 housing, would you be able to accept it currently based on what Lincoln Housing Authority requires? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I believe Lincoln Housing Authority, they do send somebody to do an inspection. And if I remember correctly, you are given a chance to, make corrections. There's a possibility that, even if we were to end source of income discrimination, that not all properties would qualify. They do, they have specific requirements, but.
So then have you had to go through the Lincoln Housing Authority checklist that they send to folks that want to take Section 8?
No, but I've had to go through building and safeties, and it's quite extensive, and most of the same things, at least last time I looked at the list, they were similar.
Sure. And
So-
just to be completely clear, the reason why I'm kind of drilling down on that is because one of the things that I've heard across the board from all folks on this issue is that Lincoln Housing Authority has some really stringent requirements that are not consistent. And that's like the one common thing that I'm hearing from both sides on this issue. And so that's why I'm trying to drill down to hear some folks that have had that experience with them. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions for our testifier? All right, seeing none, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and take the next testifier up here at the podium.
I'm sorry. I will say that I have had workers from Health and Human Services because of an individual with disabilities, and they have extremely strict requirements. So I would say that theirs is every bit, if not more, strict than Lincoln Housing Authority. So I do have some experience with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and take our next testifier up here at the podium at the open microphone. Andrew, welcome.
Good evening, Lincoln City Council members. My name is Andrew Fudius. I'm a member of the Source of Income Protection and Housing and a Lobby and Policy Fellow at the Asian Community and Cultural Center, which is located at 144 North 44th Street, Suite A. My role revolves around ensuring that the voices of directly impacted people are uplifted to elected officials. And for that reason, I'll be sharing a story on behalf of a coworker who cares about source of income protections but could not be here tonight. My name is Samia Ahmed. I'm a family advocate for the Middle Eastern community at the Asian Community and Cultural Center. The Asian Center is a nonprofit organization that supports and empowers all immigrants and refugees through programs and services. For over 30 years, our organization has served the Lincoln area by increasing the stability of immigrant and refugee families who face economic and cultural barriers to self-sufficiency as new Americans. In 2022 alone, the Asian Center served nearly 2,000 people from over 30 different countries who spoke over 40 different languages. I am also the Arabic instructor for the Rentwise class with the Lincoln Housing Authority. I teach classes to Arabic clients every 3 months, and the class has lots of information to teach them how to keep their housing assistance without any problems so as not to lose it. But there are still some challenges facing this community. When they finish the class and have their vouchers and are ready to look for a place to live, lots of landlords still do not accept their vouchers. It is difficult when LHA only gives them 3 months to find a place to live. They can extend the time if you have a good reason, but if they do not use a voucher in time, they go back on the waiting list for months or sometimes even years. Another problem is most of the families are large with more than 6 kids, and it's very hard and expensive to find a 5-bedroom place that matches their income, especially those who are new to the United States. One more challenge is that the Catholic Social Services and Lutheran Family Services are only able to assist refugees with rent for 3 months and leave them with the lease for a year. Families then find themselves stuck in a lease where they have to pay a larger than affordable amount, even with their voucher, which causes them some time to have to leave or move because by that time, most of them haven't even found jobs yet, don't speak English, do not have proper affordable housing or transportation. Everyone deserves quality, safe, and affordable housing that is free from discrimination based off their source of income in Nebraska. An ordinance that bans source of income discrimination will help promote housing stability and ensure that immigrants and refugees in my community feel welcome in our city. Therefore, the Asian Center and I urge you as City Council members to introduce an ordinance that prohibits source of income discrimination to ensure people in Lincoln have access to the housing they need to survive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Andrew. Do we have questions for our testifier? All right, seeing none, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and take the next testifier up here at the open mic. Hello, welcome.
Hello again. My name is Lizzie Turner. I live at 1614 D Street. I'm a member of the Coalition for Source of Income Protections and Housing. I will be sharing a testimony from someone who cannot be here tonight for very serious safety concerns. I ask you take this testimony as seriously as if she was here because she really would be here if she could. In 2016, I had 30 days to leave my home of 30 years and I had no place to go. A friend found a place for me in Tecumseh. I was an outsider living in fear due to threats from members of my family. I was sick due to loss, grief, fear, and physical illness. I made the decision to move back to Lincoln. My doctors are here. Lincoln is familiar to me. I needed and wanted a home. I was able to get into senior housing. However, living in the senior housing apartment complex was more like living in a detention center than a home with 20 pages of rules and regulations. After spending several years dealing with terrible living conditions, I now live in a place I am safe, a place where my disabilities are not seen as a character flaw, a place where for the first time since 2016 I can call home. The only reason I now have a home is because of the Section 8 housing voucher. In my apartment, I can move around with my walking stick, walker, and power wheelchair. I have room for my service dog and her needs. Several people and I often chat during my walks with my service dog. I get to watch the kids play. I get to interact with them and their parents. I learned I am not the only one dealing with loss, dealing with fear. We are all creating a new life. And for the first time since 2016, I have a renewed hope in having a life safe from fear and can create a new life where I will have a purpose. Section 8 housing provided the ability to choose where I live, but it was a challenge to find somewhere that would take my voucher and was handicap accessible. Waiting, hoping, and stumbling through the process and searching for a new home was long and confusing. I looked and looked for a place. I had to request an extension for 3 months. During the 6 months of searching, I was only able to find 3 places that were handicap accessible. These places were unaffordable for me even with the voucher. Finally, so close to the end, my caseworker found the place I live now. I was approved and moved in. The work and tenacity in my search would have been useless without the assistance of Aging Partners, League of Human Dignity, the First Christian Church, the Plymouth Church, and friends. But without the Section 8 vouchers from the Lincoln Housing Authority and the assistance of the counselors who answered my questions, it wouldn't have happened. It is important these barriers are removed and we put an end to source of income discrimination. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree with a specialty, and I still needed assistance to find an appropriate place for me to live. I have been so fortunate to receive this assistance I needed to navigate the process, but that is not the case for everyone. Until every person is considered to be a valued individual, there will be no concept of the good life Nebraska proposes to have. It is time for ideals to become reality. It is my hope that in sharing my story, this portion of my story, there will be a conscientious focus to provide more housing in all neighborhoods that are handicapped accessible, increased support through social services agencies for the disabled and aged, and more support towards food, transportation, and daycare. I have been fortunate my prayers have been answered. I am not the only one with a story whose life has been affected by elements outside of my control, and I am not the only person who has had my life positively affected by housing assistance. I would like to think it can and will happen for others. Thank you for listening and allowing me to give my voice to my experiences in finding a home. I finally feel like I have the opportunity to have a home, which I would not have had without the Section 8 program. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for our testifier?
I have a question.
Yes, Councilman.
And if you don't know the answer to this, this is completely fine. This isn't a trick question, but just to provide more information, can you explain how the housing voucher program works? Is it someone goes into an organization and then makes a request, and then they're put on a wait list, and then they have to take that voucher, and then can you just kind of walk through what the housing voucher process is like?
Yes, so from the Lincoln Housing Authority, the voucher will cover fair market rent rates, and then the voucher holder will pay 30% of their income so that it remains affordable. Does that answer? If it's above that rate they have set, then they have to pay more than the 30%. So I think that's kind of what she was referencing here, that it was above that amount that Lincoln Housing Authority would cover.
So Lincoln Housing Authority sets what they consider the fair market rent to be. And if a person goes to apply to live at a unit that has a higher rent, then they have to pay more than that 30%.
Correct.
To take advantage of the housing voucher. Do you, kind of related but kind of not related, do you think that dense housing, building dense neighborhoods helps alleviate the issues of lack of access to housing?
That's a hard question. I mean, I think I can answer personally as someone who lived in a metropolitan city for a long time that sometimes it can, but also a lot of dense housing developments. We've heard from some neighbors and communities we work in, especially if there's not green space and if there's not enough parking sometimes, that really dense building can be hard for the existing neighborhood. So trying to find that balance of both is important.
Do you think that existing neighborhoods should be able to discriminate against students living in their neighborhood?
I can answer for myself personally.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I understand hesitation with it, but I think there's maybe better solutions personally. Not speaking on the coalition or any organization I work for.
Do you think that this is the last question that I have. Do you think that the no more than 3 unrelated people ban should be repealed?
I just don't want to get myself in trouble for the organizations I work for answering these questions, but I would love to talk about that more.
I mean, the reason why I bring it up is, the goal is to provide more access to housing for as many folks as possible. When we have affordable housing projects come up, when we have dense housing projects come up, those are controversial things that go into neighborhoods, and I just don't see a lot of support coming from activists and whatnot. So I'm just I just wanted to kind of get a feel on that. So thank you for answering those questions. And thank
I
you
will
for being
say
one
I
of the-
have personal, really strong feelings about that last one, since I'm here representing my coalition and the organizations I work for that have not made an official policy statement on that. I'm just uncomfortable answering that right now. But I think it is something we're probably open to discussing more and being in further communication about it.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you answering.
Of course.
Any other questions for our testifier? All right, very good. Thank you so much.
And really, thank you all so much for your time. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
We have an open microphone, so if we have another testifier who is ready, please come on down. Hello, welcome.
Hi. My name's Elizabeth Ramirez, and I'm the mother of 6 children. I've lived in Lincoln for 27 years and work for a local nonprofit that helps my fellow neighbors. And I have a strong attachment to this community and genuinely care about it. And at the moment, I'm raising 4 children who are between the ages of 5 and 12. Furthermore, my older 2 children were born and raised in Lincoln as well and still live in this community. I'm also a Section 8 voucher holder. My housing voucher has helped me secure stable housing for my family, but it's also presented a lot of difficulties. As many others do, I found it extremely difficult finding somewhere that would accept my voucher. I called, made so many phone calls, and I don't think that there was one that did not turn me away for being a housing recipient. However, I decided to take matters into my own hands and began putting a letter together explaining to landlords my situation and why I was in a position that I needed a housing voucher. Additionally, I did my research and looked up on Housing Authority's website to see what the requirements were for these landlords to accept housing and if it was a streamlined process. And I would also share that information with them along with my application and my letter. Because of that, I was able to secure a home at the time, but not in the most desirable place and far away from my children's school. So it's made transportation difficult for us. But from personal experience, it is hard to secure housing. And for a time, we were actually homeless for about 7 months because we couldn't secure housing. And with the threat of losing a voucher, you take what you can get. And so because of that, again, I find myself living in a place that, is not ideal for us, but it's a roof over our head. And so if those barriers were to be removed and there wasn't a source of income discrimination, it would make it easier for me to be in a place where my children feel safe, where I feel safe, where their school is close by, and would alleviate a lot of it. And I think that what you had asked earlier about, the requirements of landlords and things like that, it seems like daunting when you look at all the paperwork, but the inspections are actually pretty quick. And if they pass the first time, then you get to skip for the next year. So you get to go 2 years until you need another inspection. And they're pretty lenient. They work with landlords, and at times they had like an incentive where they would get like an extra $200 if they signed on to be a landlord that would rent to Section 8 voucher holders.
Questions for our testifier? I do have one for you. Thank you for coming down and speaking. We appreciate it very much. Something that, as Councilman Bowers had mentioned, that I've heard anecdotally has been a lack of the ability to identify landlords who may accept Section 8 housing vouchers. Would that have helped you during your process to have a community-wide list of either landlords or specific complexes or what have you that would accept Section 8 housing vouchers? Would that have helped you through your process?
With social media today, it's pretty easy to go out there and look for area, like people will post, hey, these are places that offer. A lot of those places, again, are not the most desirable areas. And I wasn't looking for an apartment. I was looking to be in a home. I have 6 children, 4 still live with me, and that's just what we're used to. No, I don't think it would have made it easier. I think it just would have made it easier to get into a spot that would accept the voucher, not a place that was ideal for us. I mean, if it were up to me, I would live closer to the school so that my kids could walk, rather than me every day trying to find a ride for them home. So that's something that I deal with daily. is, rides for them to get home or to their after-school activities, because I have to work until 5 o'clock. But no, I was pretty, I can research and do my own research, and that's why I decided that rather than do that, I would rather do a sales pitch to landlords that weren't accepting in hopes that they would, take a leap of faith and rent to us. And that's eventually what got it, was my letter and the extra information I provided.
So it wasn't so much an issue of whether or not you could find housing that accepted Section 8 housing, but rather housing that you wanted to live in that accepted Section 8 housing.
Right, without being put in a place that, I think what happens is that sometimes we have landlords that, do accept the housing, but because they understand the need for someone to have that, sometimes things like maybe maintenance requests aren't met as quickly as someone who doesn't have housing, because it's, what are you going to do? Are you going to, a lot of times I find myself doing that still, not making maintenance requests, because I don't want the threat of, not having my lease renewed because I have housing, and so they know I'm kind of stuck because it's hard to find another spot. And so you find yourself accepting things that you wouldn't normally.
Thank you so much for your testimony today. We appreciate it.
Sure.
Take care. Is there another person who would like to testify? Please come on down to the open microphone. Hello, welcome.
Hello. I'm Rosina Paolini, R-O-S-O. I don't have to do that here. 1850 Dakota Street. I'm going to break the tradition here a little bit and go a little bit off topic. I was very involved with planning and all this, and then stepped away. Came back a couple of years ago and have really been invested and learned a lot. We had a different administration from when I did this before. And I think what I've learned is, A, the comprehensive plan is subjective to the administration. Its interpretation is subjective to the administration. That, forgive me, but our developments are a done deal before they really ever got to the Planning Commission, for the most part. Then we get to the City Council, and the people didn't know, A, that it was probably a done deal, and B, that they needed to go to the Planning Commission if they were going to really even be heard or have any modifications made. And then we get to the City Council, and we have a whole room full of opposition. And y'all know how many times this happened over the last couple of years. 27th Street project, 9th and P, Wilderness, Crossing. I mean, we can speak to it. The solution would be, how do we do our outreach? How do we know what Lincoln wants? Because it's a done deal. You shared that with me. We're going to have this amazing project. Gosh, it really needs some green space. Like, you got 7 blocks to one park, 7 blocks to the next. It's a TIF project. We really want families to come in, but we don't want to provide any green space. So we're very interpretive of how it is we follow the policy, the action steps of our comprehensive plan. Inclusivity, complete streets, complete neighborhoods. It's all there, right? So my question is, how do we improve our interpretation, our compliance and implementation of the comprehensive plan? How do we open up our communication so we're meeting the people where they are? NeighborWorks does an awesome job of it, right? When I did that work, I did a pretty good job. I went to the people. I went to where the people are to start the conversation about, what do you want to see in your community? And then we can get buy-in, because we're doing this development with the people, not for the people, not to the people. You're doing it with the developer. You're doing it with the planning department. But the people got left out. And then you wonder why this whole room, who is in opposition of all of the things, doesn't trust the system. We got to improve the system. I think if we start with outreach and we go to where the people are and we're a little less insulated and we understand that, like, I'll give you Wilderness Crossing, for example. You had people in that room that are way smarter than most of us sitting here. And not a one of them was heard about water management, flooding, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It was all in the comprehensive plan, but we kind of didn't follow it that day. When we can break that cycle and really have conversations about our developments and make sure that affordable housing doesn't mean $1,800 a month, right? That it's really affordable housing for me, might be about $600 a month, right? Then we can have a conversation where people are included, where we're actually, the pavement, like, we're meeting the needs. And we understand what the people's needs really are. I don't know that we're doing that with surveys and 5-minute monologues. My other quick point, because I'm coming up on 4 seconds left, we put a great pressure on Parks and Recs. They rock it. They're 8th in the nation. Fundraising is precarious. We don't even know how we're going to fund this state in the next year.
Go ahead and wrap up your comments, please.
So just some future thinking about how do we fund our departments? And how are we going to do it if we have a consumption tax? Just thoughts.
Thank
You guys are awesome. I thank you for your time and I thank you for your service. And I'll see you next year. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We have an open microphone for our next testifier. Hello, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Sam Meyer Bates, and my personal address is 2344 Washington Street, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68502. I am speaking to you today not just as a Lincoln resident, but as a community organizer with Collective Impact Lincoln and a proud member of the Coalition for Source of Income Protections and Housing. In my previous professional role at the Hub Central Access Point for Young Adults, where I provided direct wraparound services for unhoused young adults, I witnessed the harsh realities of source of income discrimination. Many of our clients, aged between 18 and 24, faced immense challenges in finding landlords willing to accept their legal forms of income, be it housing vouchers, disability benefits, or child support payments. The consequence was clear. Individuals remained unhoused, trapped in a cycle perpetuated by discriminatory practices. Now, having seen the impact of such discrimination firsthand, I am compelled to urge the City Council to consider introducing an ordinance in Lincoln to ban legal source of income discrimination. In places where similar ordinances have been enacted, the voucher failure rate has been effectively halved, offering stability and hope to those who need it most. It's essential to dispel misconceptions surrounding this ordinance and address concerns about landlord choice. Contrary to some opponents' claims, this ordinance does not force landlords to accept Section 8. Rather, it ensures that tenants utilizing legal sources of income have an equal opportunity to apply. Landlords retain the right to maintain their screening requirements and deny applicants who fail to meet them. The crucial distinction lies in allowing tenants to present themselves as viable candidates, encouraging a fair and inclusive housing market. When landlords explicitly state no Section 8 allowed in their listings, they deny individuals the chance to be considered altogether. This ordinance seeks to level the playing field, fostering a more equitable environment for both tenants and landlords. I also would love to just go off script a little bit and touch on something that Councilperson Becky has mentioned about landlord lists. This is something we hear a lot, especially from opposition, who believe that that would be something that would fix this issue. Landlord lists is something that is kind of that white elephant and in nonprofits. It's something that everyone's always looking for, but it's very, very difficult to actually compile one because of how often things change. It's very impossible to keep that up to date. We also ran into a lot of issues of landlords coming to us and saying, hey, I'm willing to accept Section 8. We put them on our list. They're immediately inundated because there's such a long list of people who can't find landlords to accept it. And so they're just as quickly asking to be taken off of that list. So it's something that I agree would be incredibly helpful and would be great to be implemented, but in circumstances where there are so few landlords regularly accepting Section 8, it's one of those things that just becomes impossible to really have and to control. Believe me, I spent 2 years of my professional career trying to create a landlord list and calling landlords and getting them on that list, only to have them drop off a week later because they had 10 calls back to back from people who need housing. So that was what I would say on that point. Lincoln has the opportunity to foster a more inclusive community by dismantling barriers to housing. I strongly believe that by prohibiting source of income discrimination, we can pave the way for a city where everyone has the chance to secure safe and stable housing. And I kindly ask for your thoughtful consideration and support for this essential ordinance. Thank you so much for your time and dedication to the well-being of our community, and I appreciate your thoughts.
Any questions for Sam? Yes, Councilman Bowers, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Councilman Weber.
So I got a question, and if you don't know the answer, totally
Yeah,
fine. I'm not
absolutely.
trying to put anyone on the spot for this, and I could probably just Google it myself later tonight. So you said that like in other cities, like it halved the failure rate of housing vouchers, because if folks aren't able to use their housing voucher, then it gets taken away, and then they get put back on the waiting list.
Yep.
Do you know the reason why the other half still existed for that failure rate?
That's a great question. I don't have any specifics off the top of my head. I mean, I know going into sort of the landlord choice aspects, there are people who will have multiple evictions on the record. They'll have a criminal history that landlords don't want to accept. And so in those cases, those people might not be able to utilize the voucher that they get. So I would say that would probably contribute to the failure rate a lot, is people who, even though they're not facing source of income discrimination, they're still facing discrimination based on their criminal history, their credit score. Maybe they've never rented anywhere before, so they have no rental history. I would say that would be probably one of the bigger reasons. I don't have that information personally, though. This is just, anecdotal from my time working in direct service.
And I have another question for you, and this is not a fair question. I recognize that because you don't work for Lincoln Housing Authority. So I acknowledge you don't work for Lincoln Housing Authority. I don't think there's anyone from Lincoln Housing Authority here. But if someone knows the answer, please incorporate it in. How do they determine the fair market rate for rental units?
So my understanding of it, and I could be incorrect, is that it's defined by HUD. And so it's each year they come out with fair market rent ranges based on the income of certain areas. However, one thing I would like to note with fair market rent ranges, area median income, those kind of things, is it's really hard for that to be universal, because in Lincoln, for example, someone's area median income of 60% would be completely different from someone in near South versus someone in, say, the southwest area of town. So that's something that we look at a lot, and we see as a big issue, is that there's a big difference between 30% AMI being affordable for someone versus 30% AMI in a completely different area of Lincoln. And so I think that kind of has to do with that as well. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
No, so what I'm hearing you say is like it comes down from like the federal government HUD. Do they break, I know they don't break up for neighborhood, but do they break it up into like states or cities or coasts? Because like I imagine like Seattle, I know that their rents are super high, right?
Yep. Yeah, so it is different I believe per state and even potentially per city. I think Lincoln's numbers are specific to Lincoln. But again, that's something that I'm not 100% sure on. But I do know it is different per state, at least. You can go and look at the fair market rent ranges, the area median income, those kind of things.
Last question I have is, looks like someone's...
Perfect. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, this will probably be very helpful. So yeah, in Nebraska, the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is $883. In order to afford this level of rent and utilities without paying more than 30% of income on housing, a household must earn $2,943 monthly or $35,319 annually. And so it sort of breaks down here, facts about Nebraska and minimum wage, the most expensive areas. And then it does go into the area median income and housing costs for all of our different counties as well. So we could pass this information along too.
Yeah, can I steal that and give it back to you when you're ready
Yeah,
to test
absolutely.
it? Okay.
Yeah, we have extras, I'm sure. So yeah, I'll pass that along.
All done, Councilman?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, very good. Councilman Weber.
Thank you, Chair Becky. Sam, thank you for coming down. In your testimony, you talked a little bit about how this doesn't force landlords to accept Section 8, but instead allows individuals who utilize Section 8 to apply, and to, but that there's still the possibility for them to still be screened out.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could just elaborate on that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an argument we hear a lot is, we're forcing landlords to accept these tenants. And landlords still have their screening process that they can go through. If a landlord requires a specific credit score, if they require no evictions within the last 2 years, they have all of these requirements already. All we're asking is that they don't say no specifically based off of their legal source of income. So someone can still be denied based on those other things. And if someone felt like they were being discriminated against based on their source of income, they could take that to the city. The city could look and go, no, you were denied based on your credit score. The landlord only accepts 700 or higher, yours was 630, whatever. So there are all of these other measures in place that a landlord can still use to deny someone.
Yeah.
They just can't deny them immediately and not even allow them to apply based solely off of the fact that they're paying their rent with Section 8, with Social Security, with any of these legal sources of income.
Yeah. And so how would I'm sure this would be for the city of Lincoln, Lancaster to figure out, but how would a governmental agency determine that someone's turned away because of their credit score versus the fact that they pay, with Section 8 or with another form of payment that right now may not be accepted?
That's a great question. I don't know if I have the specifics on that, but I do know that my guess is it would come down to the landlord being required to submit their copy of their screening report and would require some sort of legal court case of some sort. But my assumption is that it would come down to the landlord needing to provide some sort of evidence as to why they were denied other than their source of income.
Awesome.
Would be my assumption.
Thank you. That's really helpful information. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it, Sam.
Other questions? I do have a
Thank you
couple
all
of
so much.
questions, Sam.
Yeah,
I do have a
absolutely.
couple of questions for you. And please forgive me. Are you officially speaking on behalf of Collective Impact Lincoln today, or are we going to have other testifiers on behalf of Collective Impact?
I can
specifically?
speak directly for Collective Impact Lincoln, yes.
Okay.
And we do have other people in the audience as well who will probably come up.
Yep, absolutely. So, question, a lot of the statistics that we have been talking about in regards to source of income have been national stats. And I had asked Collective Impact Lincoln to reach out to the Lincoln Housing Authority to speak specifically to Lincoln housing voucher situations specifically, and I didn't know if that had occurred, and if so, has Collective Impact Lincoln made any sort of data collection determination as to whether or not source of income in the Lincoln market would move the needle in terms of getting folks into more housing?
That's a great question. So I know we have had conversations with LHA. I know one issue we run into a lot is that kind of data isn't always collected. And it a lot of times can be hard to get from those kind of agencies. A lot of times they're not keeping exact track of the denials or things like that. I'm not sure if we do have any specifics from LHA, but yeah, I think it's one of those things where we try our best to get our data on that, but it's just something that's not publicly available oftentimes, and a lot of times it's not something that's being collected by LHA. But we try to get as much local data as possible, and when we are looking at similar states and similar cities with these kind of ordinances, we try to make sure that they're as comparable to Lincoln as possible.
Okay, so you guys don't think that Lincoln Housing Authority is collecting data as to why vouchers are going unused?
If they are, they have not been upfront with sharing that data with us. We have asked for it, though.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate you coming
Absolutely.
down.
Thank you so much.
We have an open microphone here for our next testifier. Hello, welcome.
Hi, my name's Majid. I'm going to start off by saying that I think that housing is a human right and that it's ridiculous that we argue that people need to jump through hoops in order to receive said housing. But mine is different than a lot of people here. I've spent over 70 days trying to find a way to humanize Palestinian genocide in a deep and empathetic manner so that those in positions of power care. Much like I did in 2020, with my Black family incarcerated and suffering behind City Council's silence. Or my fellow advocates for Indigenous rights who are harassed by police here in Lincoln while decrying continued decimation and illegal sale of land that they deserve to rebuild relationships with, land that this body approved to be zoned for said decimation. And I also want to point out that on today's docket, 8C, D, and E, I believe, talked about another 52 acres of land that was originally slated as agriculture that has now been voted to be turned into industrial zone. So who voted for green spaces? Who said in 2050 that they were going to be promoting green spaces? How well are we doing here? Should I appeal to the parents before me? Should I beg you to consider your child swapping half faces with half buried siblings as your fingers bleed from concrete while your family fights from both sides? Shall I ask Tom Beckius to estimate the cost of the realty value lost in all the bombing? Or should I ask the other Tom, as a former member of the Lincoln's oppressive forces, do you see brown reflections and past convictions on your stream? Is that why the apathy comes so easily to you? Benny, with a degree in sociology, it boggles me how silence can be the tool that you choose to use in times of global catastrophe. 2 of our elected officials work closely in groups for human rights and are shockingly silent as those rights and those humans are bombed and bulldozed live for us to watch. With a background in forestry, Sandra, I guess that olive trees weren't included in your research? Do you only study and support local preservation, or does that yes vote for Snell Hill reflect the true limits of your ethical participation when speaking for the people? Brody, as a young queer Lincolnite who witnessed this community over the past 4 years and agreed to assume the weight of voice and vote for the people, do you feel that you're doing your position justice? When your name is etched in history books, what will it say about how you fought and where you stood, and how can you be proud of yourself? Christmas is less than a week away. I know this from your guys' social media, even though the genocide isn't on there. I know this because I was raised in a Christo-fascist country that touts inclusion while only paying homage to the privileged. Pillin instructed us at the tree lighting to take in the stories that the Capitol tells in the structures. He failed to point to the corn and buffalo, though. Paying homage to their systematic genocide would mean shining a light on the racist, necrophilic obsession of colonizers to see the blood of the oppressed paint their halls. Go Big Red. So many dead. With this context in mind, our chants for Nebraska make a lot more sense. I mean, why wouldn't a state founded on the bodies of buffalo and indigenous bones be red? Clearly, it seems to be everybody's favorite color. Land back for Turtle Island. Land back for Palestine, land back for Sudan, land back for Congo, and the other 19 countries that are currently experiencing genocide. I know that everybody else praises you for your positions, but I watch your silence, and I watch what you do say. And I want to say to each of you, shame on you for abiding by for abdicating your ethical responsibility to your constituents. Shame on you for upholding your racist, fascist, half-assed predecessors and their trail of colonization. Shame on you for not listening and paying attention to your constituents consistently and effectively. And shame on you for having private conversations where you applaud people that come up here and speak to you, yet when we stand at this podium and speak to you and call each of you out for your failures, the resounding response is always silence. I have emailed, I have called, I have come here on multiple occasions attempting to have a meeting with each and every one of you. I have been denied for 4 years by this body to have any meaningful interactions with each and every one of you that has shown a reflective stance inside of these halls and your votes. I've had personal conversations. I've had personal conversations with multiple of you, and yet you still vote to approve colonization. You still vote to approve our police budget. You still vote to approve the mayor's stupid requests. And I want you to know that your constituents are watching you and that we aren't going to be silent. We aren't going to go away, and we will consistently be here to hold you accountable because we are history. These moments we are living are history, and you should sit with shame in your souls for your silence. You should sit with shame in your souls for not doing the most that you could do to be able to fix what your predecessors broke with the trust in the people, with the way you treat the land that we are occupying that is not ours. We are unwelcome guests in a stolen home. And that doesn't get acknowledged often. So while we're talking about genocides globally, I want to keep a bead on the fact that you are a piece of the machine that is continually voting through the rest of the colonization that just won't stop. You're not helping, you're hurting. Stand up and use your voice and do your damn job.
Thank you. If there's another person who would like to go ahead and come up for the to testify here at the open mic, we have one open. Hello, welcome.
Good evening, Lynn Fisher. I represent my company, Great Place Properties, and also represent the Real Estate Owners and Managers Association of Lincoln, 3534 South 48th Street. So we are a property management company, and we represent clients who, in some cases, will accept Section 8 vouchers and many other forms of income, gladly do it, and I think it's good that they have that option, that's a choice that they can make in our free enterprise system. I think private property rights and the ability to make and decide and choose on different ways of operating a business are very important. And so I think that's the key of the whole issue here with source of income, is that it be a choice in our free market system because we're private property owners. And by the way, I represent the interests of these private property owners who are the providers of affordable housing, the majority of the affordable housing in Lincoln. Our company in particular, we rent very affordably, reasonably affordable housing for many, many people. As a matter of fact, we've had the privilege of providing affordable housing for thousands of people over the years that we've been in business. And we have also provided and had the privilege of dealing with and providing housing to people with Section 8. And we do accept Section 8 on most of our properties. Some of our owners do that we represent, and some do not. And it's their choice, it's their private property, and they should have that right. I've also been a volunteer in the Rentwise program since its inception, and have had the privilege of helping thousands of people understand and learn about what it's like to deal with the system of renting and applying and finding a way to acquire a home, including how to use the Section 8 voucher system and other sources of income. But I think it's really important to remember that because it's a choice, because it's private property, that it's important to maintain and keep that a liberty that we have as private property owners. If this was to pass, I think that you'd have some consequences that are very important to remember, and that is that there are owners who, if this passes, would choose to sell their property rather than deal with an additional governmental requirement, a mandate. Our business is one of high risk and high regulation. We work on very slim margins, and each time property taxes go up, each time our insurance rates go up, each time the city council passes some mandate or requirement that we have to provide a service or comply with some requirement, we have to show up for inspections, we have to do certain things, including with Section 8, certain requirements for the the inspection that the Section 8 people do. Not that it's onerous, it's something that, that we can certainly accomplish, but it does add incrementally to our costs, both in time, both in material and labor. All those things add up and pile on top of the already very high cost of property values. Most of you in the real estate business know this, that government represents over a third of the cost in property values based on all the regulations, zoning, any city ordinance. All those things are adding on top of what would normally be the base value of a property, and our rent is a reflection of those costs. So when we take a look at all of our owner costs and decide how much we want to charge for rent, we are restricted by the market because we can't charge more than someone's willing to pay, or that they can go find another place similar with a lower rent. So we have to regulate downward our rents, but we can't go below our cost plus a small margin of profit. So it's really important that we keep that in balance. And anytime a local government or a state government or the federal government adds on a new regulation, a new mandate, we have to take that into consideration, and it will raise rents. Maybe incrementally, maybe not, but it's every one of these things that we deal with that incrementally adds more and more of our costs. And so rents go up, and it makes it less affordable for people, and their income probably isn't going to keep up.
You could please finish
I'd be
up.
happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for our testifier? Councilman?
I think I got only 2 questions for you. So what I've heard from folks, and I asked this question earlier, is that, the experience of Lincoln Housing Authority being not consistent with what they're requiring out of landlords, and that some of their requirements are really unnecessary and don't actually provide to safe, stable housing, right? Have you had that experience, or have you heard that from your folks also, that Lincoln Housing Authority has not been consistent in what they've asked in terms of being able to accept Section 8 housing?
No, our experience has been that they stick, 95% within the guidelines that they're given by HUD, and the requirements are, passed down from the federal government. And I think they do a pretty good job. I deal with all of the people down at the Housing Authority, and they all are well-meaning people that I think try to stick to the rules.
Okay. The second question that I have, and I'll ask the same thing out of a collective impact person who shows up. If this got proposed and went through, would that then mean that every landlord would then have to get approved by Lincoln Housing Authority in order to rent if they were all being forced then to accept Section 8 housing?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know that they all have to be pre-approved, but if we're forced to accept Section 8, again, I do on most of my properties, but if an owner who doesn't currently want to accept Section 8 has to consider that income, then and they would approve that person for that purpose, that they would qualify otherwise except for their income, and they have to consider that additional income. And if they are approved, because they naturally are not going to discriminate on any other basis, if that's just the only metric that we're looking at is income, the amount of income, then that person would be approved, and then the unit would have to pass the inspection by the Housing Authority. If it didn't pass, that owner can't be forced to make the unit pass. So they may have an option of not repainting the house if it has peeling paint, or doing something else that's part of the inspection, a deficiency on that inspection.
Thank you. That's very informative. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions for our testifier? Councilwoman? Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Fisher.
Good evening.
I have a couple of questions. You say that you accept Section 8 on some of your properties, and so you've certainly been through the inspection process. Can you talk a little bit about the cycle of inspections? Other folks have talked about it being an annual, or you could grab an extra year if you pass. Could you talk a little bit about that on the properties where you do accept Section 8?
I guess I'm not exactly clear if it's annual or semi-annual or biannual on ours. We have so many, I just can't keep track. I know we have annual inspections, where they call it an annual on certain properties, And it may be that if it doesn't pass the first time, we have to come back and maybe do a repair to make it pass. Those probably are going to be on an annual cycle, I'm guessing. And I think the ones that pass without any deficiencies noted probably are the ones, if they do, that would go every 2 years.
Can you talk about what makes someone say, I don't want to accept Section 8? So you also manage properties where this isn't, and I'm saying Section 8, but I also want to recognize there's lots of different kinds of housing vouchers. I mean, whether they come from the Veterans Administration or they come from Lutheran Family Services. I mean,
Centerpoint.
Yes. I mean, there's dozens.
Yeah. So it's based on experience. It's based on a property owner's understanding of all the risks that are involved with all those different types of sources of income. So, you know, our business is very risky. It's very highly regulated, but there's a lot of risk as well. So through experience, we've learned certain agencies that provide certain programs are ones to avoid if we want to try to make a profit on that unit.
If you don't mind, I'd like to dig in just a smidge on that. I visited with Lincoln Housing Authority about the voucher, about the Section 8 vouchers, and so I know that there's some kind of, if a tenant who's got a Section 8, if they do something to the apartment that makes it so that it's unrentable the next year, there is some kind of system. It may not pay 100% of the cost, but that voucher system is different than Centerpoint, and they don't have the backing of HUD when you get a voucher from Centerpoint or from Catholic Social Services. Can you talk a little bit about the variety of housing vouchers you get and which ones give you some back-end assistance and which ones don't?
Yeah, we don't receive any assistance for damages from the Lincoln Housing Authority.
Okay.
There are other programs that offer those things, but generally they're too high risk for us. Centerpoint, for example, we don't take Centerpoint vouchers.
But they would provide back-end assistance?
It depends on the program. Okay. I know there's different federal programs that they administer, and I know and we haven't done it for a long time, but there are, I know Region 5, we experimented with Region 5 unsuccessfully, where they do offer damage assistance for folks. And I'll just address that one in particular. We don't take that anymore because of the disruption in a multi-unit building, the kinds of drama that other tenants had to suffer through, and consequently we'd lose good tenants when we put in somebody under that program. So it's a very complex, large world of assistance that Section 8 is probably the easiest one to deal with, but if source of income becomes a mandate, then we would have to deal with all those other programs, and that's probably the biggest problem.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, see.
Thank you.
Councilman?
Oh,
I guess, I don't know if this is a question, but I guess just a thought then. So like the other organizations that then provide vouchers could then set their own criteria for what they would rent to, and then essentially one organization could then set the standard across the city, is what I'm hearing you say.
Can you repeat the question? I don't quite understand.
Yeah, so like I said, I don't know if this question is more of the thought that's forming in my mind, because what Councilman Washington was saying was that if, with different organizations providing different vouchers and having different requirements, if a nonprofit then decided that they wanted to get into the voucher business and then have criteria set for their folks that they would be working with in order to provide housing to, then they could then they would have their own criteria, and that would then almost become the standard, and then one organization could make the standard for the entire city.
I doubt it. I think every organization obviously has its own, its own motivation and its own funding. HUD, for example, is the controller for the Section 8 system, and all these other agencies have their own background. I'm not sure what they would be, but it would be complex. Excuse me. So I think, it becomes problematic to think about how many dozens of agencies we would have to deal with besides the Lincoln Housing Authority if this became a local ordinance.
Well, again, I'm just processing, not a question there, but so if my friend Benny Show decides to open up a nonprofit that provides housing to folks between the ages of 18 and I'm just making up some 18 to 24, and part of that would require that landlords would have to. This would not happen, but I'm just making up an example. So I'm not saying that this would happen. I'm just coming up with an example to talk about. That all the rooms would have to be painted blue then. And if we had all tenants or all landlords in Lincoln had to accept every single source of income, then would that then become the standard because they would have to almost meet like the highest standard?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Do you get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I understand, but I don't think there would be any kind of coordination between those agencies. I don't believe so.
Thanks so much.
Sure.
Like I said, not a question, just formulating.
All right. Thank you.
Fisher, we appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And just as one note for everyone, this is open microphone session. We do not have an ordinance in front of us. A couple of testifiers have referenced specific ordinance. We do not have an ordinance in front of us. This is simply an open microphone session. Hello, welcome.
Hi. Hi, I'm Julie. I've been here a couple of times. I put my address on the list. I'm not going to say it here. As you guys might become familiar with my face here, we've been coming here consistently to talk about Palestine and Israel. And yeah, we've been telling you guys that our country been using the tax dollar to do what? To kill innocent people. And right here in Lincoln, we have folks coming to ask for money for people who struggle right here in Lincoln to like pay for housing, right? So why don't we do that instead? And speaking about housing, I can maybe talk a little more because I also work for Asian Community and Cultural Center as a Vietnamese community advocate, and I work like closely to folks in the community. For like a specific number, I know one of my clients have like house that raising from 395 to 695, so like 400 to 700 within the last 3 years. So since COVID, it's raised that much, which is 40 to 43%, right? Her income go from $15 an hour to $16 an hour, so $1 for the last 3 years, which is 6.25%, and that's only for housing. So her income raised 6%. Her housing rate almost 50%, like 43%. So how can she afford that, right? And there's still like car payments, there's still utility, grocery, there's all sorts of things. And I mean, she's not like using any voucher aid, like anything. She's just a regular like resident here, working and coming. And she's been staying that place for like 20 years since she first came here. 27 years. Since she first come here to the United States from Vietnam. And it's not even a great place. It's like there's always, like for the last 3 years when they've been raising up the rent, there's always problem. Winter, there's no heating. She have to call them to come fix, and took them like almost a month to really show up and fix that. There's a hole from like upstairs that like keep leaking water right through her ceiling to go straight to her bedroom, that she have to like put a bowl to like really make sure that she have space to sleep. There's people like come knock on her door at night and she report and there's no one. She doesn't even have a legit place to like park her car, where she's been there for 20 years and there's not really a place for her to park her car. So there's a lot of problem that you guys can look at, and so I'm kind of moved to a topic, but like I come to some folks, come with some folks here, go to a meeting in San Francisco, and one thing that I learned from the meeting was the training was like, we have the power to speak up. And that's what we should use. And it's not only apply for us who like just one individual in the community, it's also apply for everyone here, like for you guys, that you can speak up to whoever the supervisor, whoever the boss, because that's what it should be, where we push up instead of push down, because it feels much easier to like tell whoever below us, like who weaker, who less like powerless than us, to like, oh, listen to what I have to say and like just do it, just listen to me, than like telling the boss or the supervisor like, oh, I don't think I agree with the budget that you sent me here. I think Lincoln need more money in order for folks to have a stable place to stay, so that they can have a good job and can have a better life. Like tell them, not like not looking at us here and like, no, we don't have the budget for that, or like try to push us whatever the budget you guys have, like push it back up there. Yeah, so I have a minute. I don't think I have enough time to do my speech, but I try my best. So yeah, I born and raised in Vietnam. So back to Palestine in Israel. Sorry, I'm everywhere today, but yeah. So I will use my experience in Vietnam to express my opinion about Palestine, Israel. Growing up, all students like me will see a red banner right in front of all school from elementary to high school that state. This proverb say in Vietnamese, "Tiên học lễ, hậu học văn." I'm not sure there's a direct translation in English, but word by word it means, first learn to be a human, then learn to be a genius. The closest I can find is a quote from Saint Teresa of the Lisa say, without love, these even the most brilliant count and nothing. So in Vietnam, morality is the top priority for students to learn. In school, we have 2 transcripts, one for our academic performance and one for our ethic. We even have classes over it, so we learn to respect the elderly and nurture the youth. Lying is bad and truth is a must.
If you could please finish up your comments.
Yep, I have a lot more, so I'm not going to be able to finish, but I'll be back next time, which like after Christmas. But yeah, please use Christmas to really think about this. If you eat, think about the Palestinian over there don't have food to eat because Israel cut off the food. If you drink, think about the water being cut off over there. If you even breathe, think about the toxic air that they have been breathing because of all the bombing and the toxins and even white phosphorus. So yeah, everything you do over the Christmas and New Year, think about them. Thank you.
Thank you. We have an open microphone if there's another person that would like to come up and testify. Hello, welcome.
Good evening, my name is Kayshawn Lungelo, live at 323 North 44th Street. I'm just gonna show a quick video. It gives a pretty easy update on what's going on over there in Gaza.
Completely destroyed and 173. It's for today. We have updated numbers on total devastation that happened in the Gaza Strip, and we're gonna go through it one by one. 25,612 people are now dead, including the people presumed to be stuck under rubble who will not be able to get saved in time. 52,031 injuries in total. 89 journalists have been killed since October 7th. That means on some days, more than 1 journalist has been killed. 0.85 million people have now been displaced. The population in the Gaza Strip is a little over 2 million, so we can assume that most of the people in the Gaza Strip are totally displaced at this point. 634,000 housing units have been completely destroyed, and 173,000 units have been partially destroyed. 147 press headquarters have been either damaged or completely destroyed. 1,441 destroyed industrial facilities. 156 mosques have been damaged, and 4 churches have been damaged. 473 health staff have been targeted. From the targeted health staff, 222 have died and 251 have been injured. On top of that, 125 health facilities have been targeted. This includes 23 hospitals, 56 clinics, and 46 ambulances. Make sure you like, comment, and share, and I will be back tomorrow with more.
So in America, we know we pretty much have like limitless money. Like we can make heaven on earth here. We don't have to wait to die to go to heaven. We could just use the money that we have. Instead of funding genocide, we can use the money to make sure we give everybody some housing. We can make sure everybody is like has the right to housing and make sure everybody's fed. But instead we waste our money on killing people so we could get some more land for like oil or some bullshit reason that we don't really need. So like everybody else who's came up here for Palestine, I implore you to speak out, do whatever you can so we can use our taxpayer money, because it's my money, it's y'all money, it's everybody in here's money. We could use our money to benefit the world instead of, I mean, you heard her, like killing innocent people. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. We have an open microphone if someone would like to come up and speak again. Hello, welcome again.
Do I need to reintroduce myself?
If you would, just for the record, that would be great.
Nate Stevenson, off projects 1028 South 16th Street.
Thank you.
Mostly I have questions. I think for a moment I can talk about the student issue, student housing. And the high density housing. They are temporary occupants, true, but they're community-minded. They're getting the feel of how community works and how to be involved. Just like they're taking their lessons, a lot of them are learning about being active in their own community. They're getting their feet wet. Yeah, and they're less temporary than some of the low-class residents. These guys are here for 2 to 4 years, sometimes longer. And there are other low-class occupants that, I don't know how to sum it up, bounce from lease to lease, eviction to eviction, things like. I think there's way bigger things to worry about, I think, than the student issue. Also, to my questions, what zoning action would be needed for me to actually put up my light up sign on my porch or return my sign to my porch? It was up for like 7 years before I got a complaint. What do I need to do to get it back? I get no business without it. Anybody?
So if you'll have, if you could pause, Brandy, our time real quick. So you have time to speak about anything that's not on today's agenda.
Yeah, that is not on the agenda.
If it's covering your specific household, then I'm going to consider it something that we've already talked about. If it's something that you want to talk about other than your specific household, you're free to do so. But at this point in time, I think that everything that you want to speak to should not be specific to your particular residence. And I would encourage you to reach out to Building and Safety with those questions.
Perfect. That was going to be my next question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let me see. Yeah, I think most of these can be covered by building safety. Oh, city council schedule. Where's the schedule available to be seen? I have no idea when you guys meet.
It's on the city council website, lincoln.ne.gov.
Perfect. That's about my household. Is building and safety the only ones that I address my questions to? Could I maybe write a letter to city council so I don't have to come take the time? That would be heard and processed? Right on.
Absolutely, and our website, our how to contact us is on that same website as well.
Perfect. And
all of our email addresses.
And it's citycouncil.org?
Lincoln.ne.gov.
Wow, I was way off. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We do have an open microphone if someone else would like to come up and get ready to testify. Hello, welcome again.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak again. I am here to talk about the source of income protections and housing issue. I am a member of the Coalition for the Source of Income Protections and Housing, although I am here mostly sharing my own personal views right now with regard to that. So when I see all of you, I can really appreciate this room because I see a room full of problem solvers, people who are dedicated to trying to solve the problems that Lincoln faces. And one of the problems that Lincoln faces right now is that we have a very large number of people who are suffering, I think, somewhat needlessly. It's a group of people whose problems we could solve if we had the right ordinance before us, if we had the right administrative tools. And this nation has grappled with this problem, how to enact source of income protections. And a lot of places have solved many of the issues and benefited a lot of their people by passing an ordinance. It seems to be the solution that is used. It's not, and I don't want to criticize, but it's not going to come from a list. It's going to come from an ordinance. But there is a need to take care of the other side, of course. I mean, there are landlords, small landlords in this city who live day to day, they're small business owners. They're part of the backbone of the city. It's very important that they survive, that they don't get replaced by a bunch of, giant corporations and that the little guys can also survive. That's very important, I think, for housing and for the future. And these are problems we can solve, you know? We can solve them, of course, by passing an ordinance, but we can also solve the other issues that are on there. What are these other issues? Well, the main one that I've noticed is administrative. People are confused, perhaps. They don't know necessarily how to handle all of the things that are going to be coming at them from all these different sources of income. So initially, there are going to be some upfront costs for the city. What are those upfront costs going to be? They're going to be to help people with that administrative issue, to create, say, a liaison for source of income that's going to be easy to contact, someone that can tell the people, you know, tell these landlords, these are the things you have to comply with. I know exactly what you have to do. These are the people you have to contact. These are the steps you have to do. Make their administrative stuff easy. That's something we can do, and it's not an expensive cost, but it's something that the city can take on so that the landlords have an easier job. And yes, we can have a risk mitigation fund, and we can see that perhaps that fund eases the minds of the landlords, whereas maybe it doesn't get used as often as you would think. It's there to calm the waters during the initial, transition. So yes, there are problems. Yes, it is not an easy issue to take on, but unfortunately, there isn't another workaround. And there are people suffering, and there is a solution, and the solution is an ordinance. It's just that we have to do it right. And so I just hope that we can all get on the same page or start working together to make the right ordinance, to make it so that Lincoln can solve this problem, because it is a problem. It is a huge problem. We have a huge failure rate for Section 8 vouchers, much higher than it should be. We are going through a housing crisis. We can't ignore things that we can solve, and we can solve this. And that's my opinion. And I really thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for our testifier? Yes, Councilman.
Yeah, thanks. Where are you getting your data on the failures? Could you give me some numbers?
I mean, I'm getting my data from the rest of the coalition, and what I understand is that it's like a 30% failure rate right now in Lincoln. But another coalition member, Casey Ogle, she compiled the data. I'm sure she could share her sources with you, but I don't know them directly. This is a learning process for me. I mean, I don't know as much as I would like, but I feel like I'm still able to figure some things out, and I think that, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not an expert in that regard.
Any other questions for our testifier? No. Thank you so much for coming down. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet. We have an open microphone for our next testifier. If someone would like to come on up. Welcome. Hello.
Hello. I want to start with a question, though I do know that I won't get the answer, because I have seen that those who are talking about Palestine, they don't get any answer. They don't get the opportunity of any kind of conversation. But still, I want to ask a question. How many need to die in Gaza before you stop debating and you can publicly call for a ceasefire? I know I won't get the answer. Now, let me start. So we have seen that already almost 25,000 people are killed. And out of 25,000, almost 70% are women and children. Okay, so this intensity of casualty is so high, it's higher than, some people are saying it's even higher than the World War II. Now, why we are so upset, and we are really trying to, the general people, they really do want to stop it, but we are not being able to do that because those who are in power, they are not interested to listen to us. And another alarming thing is that Israel is very much clear and transparent. They're very clear about their intention of committing a genocide. They're not trying to hide it. They're just saying it. We are going to make it a parking lot, like they have to move to Lebanon or they have to move to Egypt. They're very clear about it, right? They're not trying to hide at all. And even, I just found it like, even Netanyahu today or a couple of days ago, he was saying that, oh no, USA has already bombed in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so we can do it, right? But definitely those, whatever has happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that cannot be the guideline. Okay, that cannot be the guideline at all. But that is the guideline that Israel is following and USA is helping. And another thing is that even if it is a war, and still in war, there is some rules and regulation that you need to follow. Like, you cannot bomb a hospital. You can't bomb any kind of religious institution like church, mosque, or whatever. Okay, or refugee camp. You can't do that, right? And on the most likely, it is on the 17th of October, when Israel bombed the hospital at first. Then, I think most likely Biden, he said like, no, Israel cannot do it. It has been like misfire from Hamas. But now, Israel is bombing hospital each and every day, every single day. Has been one single day that Israel hasn't bombed a hospital. Yesterday, they bombed a maternity ward. Why? Because it's a great opportunity. Because their aim is ethnic cleansing. They want to erase the future generation. That's why maternity ward is the best place. There's mom, there's babies. Done. And they don't have any arms. They cannot defend themselves, right? So this is what is happening. And they're committing one after one war crimes. And we are so feeling helpless, anger. This is the kind of feelings that I'm facing every single day. I don't know, what about you? I don't know if you have your children, or do you have anything like that? I don't know. Can you imagine your child in that place? Or do you think, oh no, it can only happen to brown people. We are white, it can't happen to us. But yeah, I can see there are some non-white people in front of me as well. But still, it's like the white supremacy of United States, the kind of mask that United States always wear, what is it called? Humanitarian, something, blah, blah, blah. Those are so fake. Those masks, those makeup, it's not working anymore. Now, and today I got to know that even Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of UK, he has even said, call for a sustainable ceasefire. So you can say that out of all those powerful countries, USA is the only country which hasn't called for a ceasefire. So what we can say, USA is like the working as a threat to the world peace. So definitely, I want you to come forward, and whatever has happened. But still, we should come forward. We should stop this mass killing. We should stop this massacre. And another thing is that
we've gone over time now.
Okay, I am over time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, but definitely I will say, please listen to yourself and see if you have any humanity left, and if you should ask for a ceasefire or not. Thank you.
Thank you. We have an open microphone if someone else would like to come up and speak next. Hello, welcome.
Hello. I am Holly Smith. Who I am is not important, though, as I am here for the people. I will not give my address. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Martin Luther King, Jr. I've often been told coming up here and giving a speech will do nothing. It won't change anything, and maybe it won't. But like my heroes, I've always been inspired to hope for change. Being white, it leaves room to think that I am a white savior only in this to benefit myself. But I am here to speak up for all oppressed people across all nations, because I can see deep down inside every single person and see a human soul. For the viewers at home, I hope you're listening. What is going on in the world is injustice on top of injustice. There are 22 active genocides that I've learned about since October 7th. Who is always backing these genocides? We need to stop this killing machine of a beast we call America the Great. They build bombs here in Lincoln, Nebraska that actively go and get dropped on countries America says we are helping by stepping in. These bombs are made right across the street from Walmart on 27th Street at General Dynamics, where you will maybe be going before Christmas to get your presents. And since we are on the topic of Christmas, how can you celebrate Christmas when people in 22 countries are actively facing a genocide? I want you to imagine having to feed your child the last piece of bread you have because you would rather go hungry or die than your child. Think about holding your child who has been dead for hours because they are all you have left after the bombs killed your other children and your wife. Think about the smell of rotting flesh all around you. While you try to sleep, you hear gunfire and bombs in the distance, but you are too tired to get up. Think that you are a reporter going into a hospital, finding all these babies that were left for dead after doctors were told by the IDF soldiers the babies would be okay and be moved. Think about seeing these premature babies starved to death, rotting away. And then the IDF shoots you in the leg and you are left in a room bleeding to death. Think about the doctor who has a 2-year-old boy on his table with burns all the way to his muscle that cover his back, sides, and thighs. He realizes that even with the surgery, the boy needs more care, so he makes a video to ask for help so that this 2-year-old boy can get the supplies and the medical care he needs. And imagine the pain that he must feel. Imagine you are a 14-year-old girl and you had to flee your home at the beginning of the occupation's genocide because it was bombed. During the bombing, you lost your mother, your father, and your brother. Upon fleeing, your leg gets injured and later amputated with no medication to take away your pain. When you survive, all you ask for is your leg back because you wanted to become a doctor to help children. Then, while you are taking shelter in the maternity and children's building inside the Al-Nasser Medical Complex after surviving for 72 days, the occupation bombs the building that you are in. Can you imagine this 14-year-old girl just wanting to live and pushing through all of this and all of that loss for 72 days just to die? These are true stories, and this is what the Palestinian people have been going through. So when you ask what I want on Christmas on day 73 of this ongoing genocide, after I know about the other 22 genocides going on too, after I know that America has its grimy hands in all of this, I want land back for all nations. I want America's killing machine to come to a full stop. I want Starbucks, McDonald's, Walmart's, Burger King's, Amazon's, and General Dynamics to shut down. I want to hold every crooked politician liable because your silence at this point means that you support the killing of innocent lives. I want all of the oppressed people to finally be free. I want you here and at home to feel their pain, and I want to start a revolution. People remember how you made them feel. Words fade, but the feelings live on. We will hold you all accountable for your actions, and there will be no peace until there is justice.
Thank you for your testimony today. We have an open mic if someone else would like to line up. Hello. Welcome.
Hello, Council. My name is Victoria Hall. I live at 628 South 17th Street here in Lincoln. First, I am a bookseller by trade. I am all about books, and I would highly encourage all of you to take a look at the book Evicted by Matthew Desmond. It's a fantastic read, an enjoyable read for as bleak as the topic can be about the tenant-landlord interactions in Milwaukee, so really not very far removed from home. And being a renter here in Lincoln in Capitol View, it gave me a lot more perspective on what my neighbors are going through. So that is something that really put a lot of humanity into this discussion of affordable housing. Moving on from bookselling, last week I talked about the crisis in Palestine in numbers of Nebraska. And at the time I likened the population of Nebraska is about 2 million, the population of Palestine is about 2 million. And the 2 million population of Palestine is in an area about the size of Bellevue, smaller. And I did want to update you now that the last that I had heard, we had a death toll of about 20,000 Gazans, which would be the equivalent of the entire city of Beatrice plus the entire city of Seward gone from this earth. So I just wanted to put that into some perspective. Some perspective I think we can also all really understand as Americans is the number 3,000. When I hear 3,000, I think of 9/11. So on 9/11, we had our 3,000 people, Americans, lost in a terrorist attack. And when we first started hearing about the Hamas attack of October 7th, we were told that about 14 to 1,500 Israelis had lost their lives. So that's about a half of a 9/11, which is horrendous, and I would wish that on no peoples. That's already bad enough. At this point, what we have now seen for a death toll in Gaza, in response, we have our 3,000, 6,000, 9,000, 12,000, 15, 18, and you know, we're coming up. Let's go ahead and give you that extra 20,000 there. And now we are also hearing reports from Israel and from credible sources in Israeli media that actually that death toll on October 7th was more like a quarter of a 9/11. There were troops killed or civilians killed by friendly fire. There were a lot of misestimations of who was killed on the day. Israel forces have admitted that they killed their own civilians. And that's about all I have to say. I just thought, putting it into perspective, this is who died on October 7th, and this is who has died since then. And that just really does not feel right to me. And as someone whose tax dollars, I would much rather be going to help my neighbors find safe and affordable housing, not killing all of these innocents. Thank you very much.
Thank you for testifying.
Just a quick
Councilman?
question. What, who's the author of the book? Evicted by Matthew?
Matthew Desmond. He also has a phenomenal follow-up book called Poverty by America, and that one is very short, very succinct, and he pulls no punches.
Other questions for the testifier? Okay, seeing
Thank
none.
you.
Thank you so much. We have an open microphone. If someone else would like to come up, you're more than welcome. Hello, welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nguyễn Minh Thi Lê. I won't state my address here though. I was here last week listening to other friends asking you all to speak up and reach out to people at higher levels to call for ceasefire. They show you videos of Palestinians who were murdered, kids buried in rubble, doctors refused leaving their patient behind and died later due to Israeli airstrike. I believe all of us that day cried or at least felt emotional and disturbed at the state of our world, but not you guys. There was no emotion I can detect on your faces that day. I wonder if you're very good at composing yourself, or that being heartless to other people suffering is a requirement to work in the government, or it's also possible that Palestinian pains mean nothing to you all. How many more dead children will it take for the government to listen to the majority and call for a ceasefire? How many more deaths will it take for you as an individual to speak up about this genocide? How many more will it take for you to act like a human being? I don't know what else is there that needs to be said. You exist on the same internet as I do, have the same access to information as I do. The numbers are there, photos, videos. The cries of Palestinians in Gaza cannot be any louder, but why you guys act like you can hear them? It's insane that Palestinians have to beg you to see them as human beings, to see that their lives are as precious as ours, that they deserve to live. What is it about the country or the world that we live in that we allow something like this happen in 2023? And not just allow, but the U.S. is an active participant in this genocide. What's the point of life, of society? Is it to build empires and stepping on each other's throat? Is it to hoard wealth, exploit resources, and to inflict pain and violence on others? Because we humans are innately greedy and evil creatures. If the point of society is not to come together and recognize the value of every single life and to ease the suffering as a community, then I think we all have failed as humans. I believe calling for a ceasefire should be the bare minimum if you're a human being who's still in touch with humanity. Just because something is the way it is and has been doesn't mean that it should continue and doesn't make it right. If we wait, if we believe that nothing can be changed, then change will never come. People are being shot, killed, and hate crime for being against a genocide. It doesn't matter to me that you're only at the city level. As an individual, you definitely have more resources, privileges, and power than many others who are speaking up right now. Unless you don't feel there's nothing wrong with the mass killing of innocent civilians, the indiscriminate attacks on journalists and doctors, and the bombing on hospitals, schools, and refugee camps, nothing can justify genocide. I believe there will come a day where the U.S. government will be punished for the violence that it inflicts on other nations. To end my speech, I would like to deliver a quote from Howard Zinn on democracy. I tried to explain that my love was for the country, for the people, not for whatever government happened to be in power. To believe in democracy was to believe in the principle of the Declaration of Independence, that government is an artificial creation established by the people to defend the equal rights of everyone to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I interpreted everyone to include men, women, and children all over the world who have a right to life, not to be taken away by their own government or by ours. When a government betrays those democratic principles, it is being unpatriotic. Love of democracy wouldn't require opposing your government. It would require being out of order. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have an open microphone. If there's anyone else who would like to testify today, please come forward. Casey, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Council, my name is Casey Ogle, Kaseyoogle. I live at 6039 Meridian Drive, apartment 422 here in Lincoln, 68504. And I'm here as a proud member of the Coalition for Source of Income Protections and Housing, and here to hopefully answer some of the questions that have been raised so far. So I have a list of some, and then obviously if you have others, please. First, Councilperson Duden, you had asked about the failure rate. Where are we getting that data? Right. I have asked for that data from Lincoln Housing Authority at a couple of different points, and the most recent that I had asked and received was that the voucher failure rate is at around 26%, or that the success rate is 74%. So, yeah, that was the most recent data from them.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. The study. Oh, yes, the study, Councilperson Washington, the study for cutting the voucher failure rate in half. It was a rigorous study of several different places that had of their failure rates prior to and then after passing source of income discrimination compared to other areas around the cities that had passed these protections as well to sort of validate the data. I'm very happy to send it to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
How is fair market rent set? It is set by HUD. It is by local area, and it's also by household size. So you can have fair market rent for an efficiency, a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, which corresponds to household size as well. There was also a question about how to distinguish for right. Is it being turned away because of source of income, or is it being turned away because of something else, credit score, anything else? All I can say about that really is that we have the Commission on Human Rights, which would take complaints, investigates these things, is well-versed in doing that, would be able to investigate whether or not, if someone thinks they've faced source of income discrimination, if there were to be a ban on such discrimination, some sort of investigation into whether it was source of income discrimination, whether it was being turned away for some other reason. Oh, Councilperson Beckius, I did reach out to LHA, and I'm sorry, I had dropped the ball on forwarding that to you. They do not gather information about the failure rate, so they don't have anything to share on that. They did have some data on reasons for voucher termination, so after someone successfully used their voucher, why they sort of go away from the program. I'm happy to share that with you. It's a chart.
That would be great, Casey. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a question about would all landlords have to be approved by LHA if there is a source of income discrimination ordinance. I think Mr. Fisher answered that very well, which was that there would not be a pre-approval process. It would be a tenant applies, and then the landlord would have to go through the process with LHA, but not until that sort of happened. And then I think there was Councilman Bowers, you had a question about what if one nonprofit were to set the standard with blue rooms or painting the rooms blue? It's a hypothetical. Yeah. I mean, I think Mr. Fisher also had mentioned this, right? Like, landlords won't have to, LHA can't force landlords to come into compliance with their housing quality standards, right? So and this would be the same with nonprofits who set their own sort of standards for what their vouchers are. The landlords wouldn't be able to turn away a prospective tenant simply because they would, because of how they would pay their rent. But if there comes through some sort of process in which LHA or some local nonprofit or other source of assistance has requirements that the landlord can't come into compliance with, then they wouldn't. You don't have to build an extra room or build an extra exit or paint your rooms blue. Does that answer your question? No, that's the list, so, yeah.
All finished?
Yeah.
Okay, do we have questions for Casey? Councilman?
Okay, so just to kind of like have a conversation about this and kind of process
Sure.
this out, because I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it. So Benny opens up a nonprofit to help out-of-work social workers afford a place to live in Johansi's house. And
Keeping it in the family, I see. Yeah.
And, you know, Benny just told me like Kelly Green. And so in order for me to live at Johansi's house, I'm fully aware this is so it's interesting with that. And it says that in order for me to live at Johansi's house, the room has to be green. I go to apply to live at Johansi's house that he's renting out. Then would he then have to make the house green or the room green?
No.
So why not? I guess that's one of the things I'm kind of like curious on. It's like, why not? Like, if wouldn't that be then discriminating on my source?
It's saying that the landlord can't and or won't come into compliance with whatever extraneous requirements there are.
So then, like, how would that? I'm not asking. This is not a gotcha. This is like a process is here. So, like, if instead of green rooms, though, it was something related to checklist.
Sure.
Benny's nonprofit for out-of-work social workers to go live at Johansi's house.
Sure.
And the screen has one of the requirements. Has it door frame needs to be wide enough for a wheelchair? Oh yeah, okay, that's a good one. Door frame be wide enough for a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Then does Johansi have to get into compliance for that? Even though it's like that's the housing requirement need?
Yeah.
Do you get where I'm coming from?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I think there's a difference between LHA saying that they won't work with a landlord and a landlord saying that they won't work with LHA. I think there's a difference there.
And that's like one of the things I kind of get caught up on, right? Because like that's one thing that I've heard from, and I know that's one of the things that I've heard from landlords is that like the housing authority is not consistent or reasonable at times in how they work with landlords, and so that's part of it. But if there's a requirement from Lincoln Housing Authority that the door is wide enough for a wheelchair, Hansi would not have to then get his house into compliance.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually,
Mhm.
you are.
And we may want to move away from anything that may unintentionally interact with ADA compliance.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Great point.
I think my question's valid. I know it might be confusing and complicated or whatever, but I think it's a valid question. So people can be upset about it all they want. But I think it's a valid question because, like, if we say that you have to take housing vouchers, you should vote. Sorry, Margaret. If we're saying that people have to take housing vouchers, then are we saying then that they have to update their units in a radical way, or is that just another way that this wouldn't be enforceable?
I don't know if I would say not enforceable. I will say source of income, it only cuts the voucher failure rate in half. It doesn't eliminate it. It doesn't solve all the problems. It's not a perfect solution. It is a desperately needed solution. That's all I know how to say.
Okay.
Other questions, Councilman Duden?
Yeah, just a comment from Mr. I've worked with Lincoln Housing Authority. They're a wonderful agency.
Absolutely.
They help an awful lot of people in the city of Lincoln. And when it comes to properties that might not be in compliance, they give the landlord plenty of time to correct it. And Yeah, they'll come in, do an inspection. Next year, you'll get another inspection. They might find something else, a bent window or door or something like that. That's part of wear and tear on a property.
Yeah.
So I can't really dig on them for not working with landlords, because I think they do a wonderful job. And I just wanted to make that comment because that's been my experience with them as well. So.
Appreciate that, Councilman. Thank you.
Other questions for our testifier? Councilman Weber.
Thank you, Chair Beckius, and I do have to give Councilman Bowers credit for coming up with some creative hypotheticals. Casey, thank you so much for coming down here today. Thank you for answering that question that I had earlier about almost an enforcement mechanism of sorts. How many, and I have to still review some of this material, but roughly how many signatures are on these petitions that that the coalition delivered to us tonight?
Is over 530. I believe it was 534.
Yeah.
Give or take a few.
Okay, thank you. So there, there's clearly an appetite in Lincoln to see this issue, to have this issue discussed and debated. And I just am curious why the coalition, instead of mobilizing or circulating petitions to get this on a ballot, for example, and instead did a petition for the council. I'm just genuinely curious about the coalition's approach to that.
It's a fair question. Ballot initiatives are resource intensive.
Absolutely.
And I think we, as part of the coalition, have, looked to this council and believe that this council has the best interests of Lincolnites at heart. Mm-hmm. And that if we were able to show the interest of the city, that the problem might be solved without those resorting to a ballot initiative. As it is.
And that makes complete sense. I just wonder, seeing, this many signatures on a petition, that's just one of the questions that popped into my head. So I appreciate getting your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yes,
yeah, I had one question on really the impact of rent in the cities these initiatives have passed. Has there been an increase? Lynn Fisher said earlier about the cost to do business goes up. Is there a cost risk impact on rent, and would this raise rents for Lincolnites?
It's a great question. I have not seen any evidence that it does, but I've also not seen anything that says it doesn't. I can't affirmatively say that that's true, but I've not heard of any stories anecdotally or studies of whether or not rents were raised or not. Yeah.
Any other questions for Casey? Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming down.
Thanks.
One last call for open microphone session tonight. We have 2 open microphones. Is there anyone else here who would like to make public comment tonight? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I would motion that we adjourn this evening.
Second.
Second, Weber. Please call the roll.
Duden.
Yes.
Bowers? Yes.
Chobe?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Beckius?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
We are adjourned.